A young woman with red hair screamed, "Ah, damn you Minato. I am going to kill you after this is over. You hear me?" As he writhed in pain. "I understand," Kushina-chan, a man with 2 strands of spiky blonde hair that framed his attractive but terrified face, said. The young man turned to see 2 other medic ninjas and an older man with long white hair laughing from his left. As he laughed at the blonde's misfortune, he added, "It's a good thing you have your Harem, because you would be screwed without it otherwise." These 3 individuals were Jiraiya of the Sannin, Minato Namikaze, and Kushina Uzumaki. They were all present because Kushina had given birth to a young girl, whom they all decided to name Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Jiraiya and Minato were present to offer the soon-to-be mother moral support. They were also there to keep things under control in case something went wrong. An enormously powerful creature known as a tailed beast or biju was sealed inside the body of Kushina Uzumaki, a shinobi known as a container or Jinchuriki. The Kyuubi no Yoko, the strongest of all the biju with a total of 9, was contained in the young redhead. Childbirth is a distinct risk that female containers face that male containers do not. The seal that keeps the biju inside the Jinchuriki weakens to the point where it hardly holds together during childbirth, giving the biju an opportunity to escape. Because of this, Kushina was giving birth in a secret location under the observation of 2 seal masters. In addition, Bawako, the Hokage's wife, and Tsunade Senju, a famous medic ninja and one of the legendary Sannin, along with Jiraiya, gave birth to her daughter. A baby's cries quickly filled the room after one last push and yell. With love gleaming in their eyes, Minato and Kushina, who was gasping for air, gazed at the infant in Tsunade's arms. After giving the infant a quick cleaning, Tsunade gave it to Kushina, who held it tenderly while grinning a little. Everyone was content and enjoying the moment for a short while as they cuddled up to the newborn, who had just been put in a crib so that Tsunade could heal her and Minato and Jiraiya could check Kushina's seal. Bawako had remained to keep an eye on the infant by the crib. Nobody saw a new figure enter the room behind 2 of the medic ninjas stationed because everyone was so distracted. As everyone turned to see the cause, they heard a loud thud and cries of pain. It was a figure with his whole body concealed by his hood and cloak, wearing a mask of orange and black. A red eye with 3 tomos surrounding the pupil was visible through the single hole in the mask. The dead bodies of the medic nin lay beneath the man, and an unconscious Bawako lay across from them. They were all on high alert, or as alert as Kushina could get, sensing the power of the man in front of them. As Jiraiya and Tsunade watched for any movement from the man who had the audacity to confront 2 Sannin in a cage without showing any signs of concern, Minato took a stance and glared at the mask wearer. "Who are you?" demanded the blonde cage. "My identity is of no concern to you, 4th Hokage," replied the masked individual, whose voice now revealed that he was a man. "All I want is for you to hand over the Jinchuriki and there will be no issues." Since Kushina's status as a Jinchuriki should not be widely known, Minato was taken aback by this information. "How do you know of that?" "That is also not of your concern," said the man in the mask with ease. "Are you going to follow my request?" Kunoichi and the 3 shinobi who were available glared at him more because he was requesting something like a cup of sugar from a neighbor. With a sigh, the man fixed his gaze more intensely. "Even with the life of your daughter at stake?" Kushina, who was so tired that she could hardly sit up, yelled, "What do you mean?" demonstrating her strong will. The redhead's murderous intent had no effect whatsoever on the masked man. "If you would look closely at the bundle of joy in my arms." Suddenly, they were holding a white blanket, but they were concerned about what was inside. It was Naruto, their infant. Jiraiya and Tsunade became tense as the masked man pulled out a kunai and pointed it at the infant in his arms. "Now I will only say this one more time," he said. "Hand over the Jinchuriki or the child passes at the ripe age of 8 mintus." Minato said, "Now let's stay calm and not do anything hasty," in an attempt to buy himself enough time to devise a strategy. "Yeah, we can talk this out," Jiraiya said after observing his student's efforts. "Oh, you don't have to worry about me," the man in the mask remarked. He shouted, "I am perfectly calm," and threw the kunai into the roof. The kunai started to sizzle, indicating the ignition of an exploding tag, before anyone could say anything. Then, with no regard for the baby's life, the masked man hastily threw Naruto out the nearby window. Minato acted swiftly and rushed after his daughter. When he caught her, he saw that her blanket was covered in activated exploding tags. Minato used his Harem to teleport away in a flash of yellow after he snapped out of his shock and anxiety and threw the blanket off, but he still needed to get away because it was so close to them. Minato reappeared in his daughter's room, which was currently empty save for a few toys and a baby's crib. Surprised that his daughter was sleeping through it all, Minato gently placed her in her crib and kissed her forehead while she slept. When he swiftly returned to the room, he saw a wounded Tsunade tending to a more injured Jiraiya. Jiraiya spoke up after noticing his anxious pupil. The Toad Sannin looked down in shame that an unidentified man had escaped with his student's wife while he was watching. It was all a trick. As soon as the tags went off, he used the smoke from the explosion and the falling debris as a cover. He somehow appeared beside me and Tsunade and knocked us both out of the way and was by Kushina. Before I could get up, an explosion went off next to me, damaging me even more. We will find him, he is not getting away. Minato snarled. However, what is his intention regarding the Kyuubi? Abruptly, they heard a tremendous roar outside the building they were in. It was so strong that it stopped their hearts in terror. Their skin turned pale in terror as they looked out. Konoha was under attack from the free nine-tailed fox. It went on a rampage and used its powerful roar to destroy buildings. The fact that explosions were occurring demonstrated that the Konoha shinobi were making every effort to combat the Kyuubi that was demolishing their house. They nodded as they disappeared to finish their separate tasks. Tsunade, I need you to find Kushina and get her to safety. He probably took her somewhere near that location due to Kyuubi attacking. Jiraiya-sensei, get Hiruzen-sama while I go and take care of the Kyuubi. The Kyuubi simply glared angrily while pushing through a number of fire-based jutsus. Before forming its most potent attack, it charged up negative and positive chakra in its mouth and roared angrily, pushing the shinobi jumping around back and destroying the building in front of it. The tailed beast bomb is the most potent and dreaded of the 9 Biju attacks. Everyone nearby was paralyzed by fear of the technique as the wind and pressure rapidly increased. It fired the Bijudama with another powerful roar that rocked the earth, and everyone watched in morbid helplessness as the ball of destruction raced toward the Hokage monument, determined to destroy it. As the 4th Hokage emerged in front of the approaching assault, a brilliant burst of light illuminated the monument. A sealing array appeared and cracked in the air as Minato, with a hardened gaze, whipped out a tri-pronged kunai and held it in front of him. The hole was barely able to contain itself as it slowly absorbed the attack. Bijudama and the hole vanished in an instant when the burning village was rocked by an explosion miles away from Konoha. Minato's seal had allowed the Bijudama to be safely teleported out of the village. Before the 4th Hokage could exhale in relief, he felt an instant threat behind him and ducked just in time to avoid being grabbed by a hand. The man was stabbed by his swung kunai, but it passed through him as though he hadn't been there. Minato used his Hiraishin to teleport out of the masked man's reach when he attempted to grab him again. Before he was gone, the man swirled into a vortex and pursued him. As the fight against the Kyuubi continued, they both showed up in Konoha's woods, not far away. Minato cried, "Why would you do this? What would you gain from this senseless attack?" The man answered, "For my own ambitions and reasons," and then rushed forward. Minato did the same. Sparks flew everywhere as the two strong shinobi and kunais clashed, the metal scraping metal. The man wrapped a chain around Minato's left leg and sent it downward. Minato moved fast, teleporting away after hurling his kunai backwards. He reappeared and snatched the kunai from the air. The man in the mask just straightened up and looked at Minato. 3 tomos spinning in a red eye. An Uchiha. In her head, Minato yelled. That clarifies his control over the Kyuubi, but Madara Uchiha is the only Uchiha known to possess a Sharingan powerful enough to accomplish that. In any case, I have to end this fight, he said, glancing briefly at the Biju. It is causing enormous amounts of devastation. With his kunai in hand, Minato charged forward while turning to face his opponent. First, I have to break his hold on the Kyuubi. The man in the mask did the same, prepared to finally murder the 4th Hokage and wipe out Konoha. Minato leapt up, avoiding the chain as he thrust it forward, and thrust his kunai downwards, only to have it phase through him. Taking advantage of his opponent's surprise, the man stabbed Minato in the head with his own kunai, which poofed into a log. As he glanced to his left and saw Minato unharmed, the masked man pondered, so he used the substitution jutsu. Minato thought, so my eyes weren't playing tricks on me, I really phased through him. However, he still shows up when he wants to hurt me, so I have to catch him just before he hits me. It will be a race of timing and speed. Everything was decided in one instant. In an instant, the ensuring technique clash was over. Minato launched his kunai as the two charged at each other, but it phased through its target exactly as he had intended. Minato used his second signature move, a powerful Rasengan, to strike the masked man in the back as he was about to grab him. The ground developed a crater as a result of this attack. With his left arm missing and white goo dripping on the ground, the masked man appeared out of nowhere on a nearby tree branch. Minato materialized in front of him before he could think. He didn't anticipate this from the Minato, and before he could respond, a seal array materialized and Minato placed his hands on his chest. A contract seal, the man in the mask exclaimed in disbelief. You now no longer have any control over the Nine Tails, said Minato. The man in the mask leapt away. The man in the mask said, you really earned your title, and started to disappear into the whirlpool. He gradually disappeared from view, saying, I will return for the Nine Tails. I will change this world, and there are many ways for me to do so. I really don't think he was joking about that, Minato said. Minato turned around after sensing a familiar chakra and was taken aback by what she saw. Using his wife's trademark chakra technique, golden chains were used to encircle the Nine Tails. He was saddened by the fact that the Shiki Fuin, also known as the Reaper Death Seal, was being used to seal the Nine Tails once more. He was the only one who knew how to do that jutsu, and only one person would be able to do it at this time. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage. Minato swiftly hurried to the final battle, confirming what he had witnessed. As Tsunade cared for his wife, who was barely alive due to her Uzumaki genes and prompt medical attention, his wife's chakra chains were fading. As the Anbu lamented the passing of the now-dead third Hokage, he watched Jiraiya retrieve his daughter from the sealing altar. Thank you, Lord Third, Minato said respectfully and in prayer. With sorrow and resolve in his heart, he moved forward to assist everyone in caring for his family and the village. I promise your sacrifice will not be in vain. After 6 years, the surrounding area was completely dark, and no light seemed to dare to try to illuminate what was now completely dark. With the exception of one region, a small body was formed by the slow merging and spreading of various chakra colors, including blue, red, black, and mostly white. Each chakra started to spin even faster around the others, forming a dome of swirling energy. Once the energy had taken on a shape they were happy with, it started to recede, exposing what lay beneath. The hands and legs first, followed by their convergence into the torso and neck. The light then started to recede upward, exposing the face, which then faded further. Finally, the hair was exposed. For a moment, nothing happened, but instead there was a young boy, about 6 years old, with pale skin, like someone who doesn't get enough sunlight, small hands with claw-like fangs sticking out from his upper lip, no shirt, demonstrating impressive muscle tone for his age, and shoulder-length silver hair that was slightly spiked, with bangs framing his small face. Until he snapped his eyes open, revealing deep blue eyes with black slit pupils. His chakra erupted like a powerful storm as soon as his eyes opened, but a barrier stopped it, and the chakra storm continued to push against the strong barrier, sending sparks flying across the pitch-black room. The boy's chakra pushed harder against the barrier with another strong power flux, and it appeared as though the barrier would hold until it started to crack. The boy was surrounded by a barrier that was filled with cracks in a matter of seconds, and a seal array appeared above him. The crack was small and easily ignored until it spread quickly. The boy reached out and touched something solid as a white, glowing seal appeared and absorbed him. The child stood up and leapt upward with great force and power, making contact with the cracked barrier, which could no longer hold back its tenant and shattered. Before chakra swirled around and the young emerged, the seal appeared on the sun-bathed ground and glowed white. Unaccustomed to the sunlight, he covered his eyes and looked around. His eyes quickly acclimatized as he surveyed his surroundings, which included scorched ground, upturned earth, and destroyed trees. His eyes flushed scarlet as he peered over his shoulder, and information about Madara, Minato, Konoha, Chakra, Naruto, and Jutsus flooded his mind. Unaware of his own name, the young man chose to adopt that girl's name, and before he could come up with another idea, 5 figures emerged from the demolished clearing. 5 adults, arranged according to size, emerged, all with animal masks covering their faces and black cloaks, the masks being largely blank except for the letters Ne on the foreheads. As he recognized these men from the information earlier, the young man cocked his head to the left. They were Anbu, elite shinobi warriors, skilled assassins who killed from the shadows. The Anbu in the bear mask said, "Come with us, boy, our lord will want to see you." Their master probably sensed the amazing chakra that had just been released. They experienced it themselves while returning from a mission that their master, Danzo, had sent them on. The boy said, "No thank you, and then leapt backward, avoiding a blade of pure wind as the Anbu to his left attempted to blindside him with his jutsu. I don't like the feeling I'm getting from you all. He concluded his statement as if he hadn't just been attacked. It wasn't a request, the bear-masked one said, beginning his hand signals. It was a demand, fire style, flame spark. He used a low-level fire jutsu to shoot a small stream of fire at the boy, injuring but not killing him. The boy just stared at the fire for a moment before slamming his palm to the ground. The boy said, "Earth style." Earth wall, and a wall of stone and rock materialized in front of him, totally obstructing the fire jutsu. With a hint of surprise, the Anbu bear said, "He did that without any hand signs. Get him, don't let him." Before a rock spike rose from the ground behind him and stabbed him through the back, he attempted to command, saying, "I didn't even sense that." He finished before slumping forward and going limp, dead. After glancing at their deceased commander, the 4 remaining Anbu turned back to the boy, who was gathering chakra with his arms extended to his sides. "I told you I had no interest to see your master," he said icily. "And for you ignoring my warning." 2 orbs of chakra appeared on his open palms, gathering positive and negative chakra before the dense chakra orb turned black. "You're going to die. Beast bomb with 2 tails." The ground was even more scarred than before, with 2 deep craters and freshly scorched soil, and the 2 condensed balls exploded upon contact with the startled Anbu, creating a small black dome and uprooting or destroying trees. "By the way, my name is Naruto, Naruto Otsutsuki." The boy lowered his arms and gazed at the remains of one of the deceased Anbu, namely the one who had inquired about his identity. Naruto, who had now been given a name, turned his red eyes to their true blue hue and turned to the left, saying, "Looks like I'm going over there. I feel a powerful pull, but I'm not sure why. Well, at least I'll have time to process everything that's going through my mind." Naruto set out on his journey to Konohagakure, the site of the powerful pull, with a new objective in mind. After killing the Anbu that had attacked him earlier, Naruto had been walking for about 2 hours. He discovered that the energy they were all using, as well as the energy he himself unconsciously used, was called chakra. Chakra was a combination of both physical and spiritual energy. In a way, it was a fundamental layer for many forms of power. He was unaware that it even existed. He couldn't even recall his own name or his true identity because his name was made up, so how did he know how to manipulate it or even attack those men with those moves? Why was he imprisoned in that dark place? Since he had so many questions, he decided to start at Konohagakure. He was unsure of how he learned about the Leaf Village, as it was sometimes referred to, but he did know that all of his information seemed to be centered on that village and his understanding of various chakra usage techniques. He had a new idea because he knew how to use chakra. He channeled chakra to his legs and leapt up on a nearby tree branch, nearly falling off. Naruto took a deep breath and jumped quickly from one branch to another, gaining speed as he gradually grew accustomed to it. "Yeah, this will save me plenty of time," he thought as he kept jumping. As he leapt, Naruto reviewed the information he had learned from who knows where. He discovered an intriguing term called Kekkei Genkai, which was used to describe individuals or a family of chakra users who have a mutation in their DNA that enables them to use an ability more easily than others or something that only that family can do. He knew that they seemed to fall into 3 categories: body-based, which affects how the body can change or move, dojutsu, or eye-based, and chakra-based, which typically involves using a sub-element with ease or even increased chakra storage. It felt so familiar and comfortable to him that he wondered if he had any of these Kekkei Genkai in his body, which might have made using chakra easier. He also noticed a lot of different styles and jutsu that piqued his interest, and he even made a mental note to try them all because they all seemed to call out to him. As he leapt off another branch, Naruto thought to himself, "I don't get it. All this knowledge of chakra and how to use it, and yet I don't have a single clue of who I am. I don't know if I have these parents, or even a home to go to. I also seem to have the memories of another. Just who is this Naruto girl? Why do I keep thinking about her? No point in racking my mind over this, I guess. I'll just have to find the answer when I get there." Then, in an attempt to find the answers he was looking for, Naruto increased the pace and added more chakra. The village hidden in the leaves at last. After another 45 minutes, Naruto came to his attention. The village's amazing construction, with those walls appearing difficult to get around, somewhat impressed Naruto. They must be the gate guards. So, do I get in? Thought. Do I just ask for entry? Naruto thought to himself as he landed on the final tree branch before the clearing and saw two people in a booth in front of the gates. Naruto was a little defensive after what had happened with the Anbu earlier. He didn't feel comfortable approaching the guards in case they were employed by the mazer they had previously mentioned. The young Otsutsuki instinctively gathered his chakra to his eyes as he prepared to enact his idea, not realizing that his eyes briefly changed color before returning to their typical blue hue. Maybe I can trick them, but how can I? Naruto's train of thought ended as an idea began to form in his mind from another set of memories. Two Chunin, Azumo and Katetsu, stood in front of the gates, bored to death and irritated that after putting in a lot of effort to become Chunin, they were confined to watching over Konoha's nearly impenetrable gates rather than going on missions. Katetsu said, "Hey, Azumo," to his best friend, who replied, "How much longer until our shift ends?" "Here, I get really bored." Azumo shook his head in response to his old friend's irritated tone. "Just 2 more hours, so suck it up," he said, but then he sensed a presence in front of him. Glancing up, he and Katetsu met the gaze of a young boy whose eyes were as blue as those of their Hokage but had slitted pupils. Azumo was barely keeping his eyes open when Katetsu felt drowsy and looked to his left. Grabbing the side of his head to try to keep the sleep away, Katetsu looked at the silver-haired child, who looked at them with concern. Eventually, Katetsu lost the battle of staying awake as he fell backwards and let the realm of sleep take over, releasing a slight pulse of chakra in an attempt to stay awake. With a start, Katetsu leapt to his feet and started to look around. He heard a loud thud coming from behind him and turned to see that his chair had fallen over. When he looked around again, he saw nothing wrong because his partner Azumo was still asleep, his head still resting on the check-in desk. Was that just a dream? He asked himself, searching for the little boy but finding no evidence that he had ever been there. He decided to wake up his partner and turn to shake him, but before he could do so, he heard a loud commotion and looked up, his eyes widening at what he saw. The most startling of all was that there were at least 25 beautiful women in the crowd, all of whom were holding signs with his name and face on them as they cried out their love and devotion for him. They barely covered anything with their skimpy attire. Azumo can wait, Katetsu thought to himself, grinning perversely at the sight, blood streaming out of his nose. Well, hello ladies. Standing in front of the two unconscious Chunins, Naruto giggled obscenely and cocked his head to the side as he watched blood seep from their noses. As he entered the village, Naruto thought to himself, Genjutsu, Paradise Swarm, what a strange technique I came up with. He was astounded by how busy the village was, with people strolling around and shinobi leaping on the rooftops, just like he had done in the forest earlier. There was so much going on that Naruto felt as though his head was spinning. At that moment, Naruto sensed the same pull that had initially brought him to the village. He looked to his right, where the strong pull was coming from, and his eyes flushed as he saw images of a tall red building with windows and a large number of shinobi surrounding it. As Naruto ran toward the pull, he thought, I guess I'll try over there. He passed a lot of different people, some of whom even smiled at him, which perplexed him because he didn't even know them. He didn't understand, but he simply returned the smile. After a few more minutes of running, Naruto reached his destination. He thought to himself, from the memory I saw, this is called the Hokage Tower. As he looked around, he noticed many shinobi going about their daily lives, either hanging out, receiving missions, or conversing with their teams. Choosing not to raise any red flags, he entered the structure. Outside the door he needed to reach, Naruto came to a desk where another woman was seated. He approached the woman, identified by the tag on the desk as Hetsumi, and caught her attention. Hetsumi smiled warmly and said, "Hello young one. May I help you with something? Your parents are where?" The woman thought Naruto was cute because he smiled back and cocked his head slightly. "Hello," he said back, "I would like to go behind you into that room." The woman was shocked not only by how well the young man spoke for his age but also by the fact that he had no parents. Hetsumi felt sorry for the young boy. "I don't have any parents to answer your second question." "Well, I'm sorry young one but I can't just let you in without a reason," she responded with apology. "This isn't a place where you can just play it, it's where the leader of our village works at." "I would like to join the academy and become a shinobi of the village," Naruto said, searching his mind for a way to enter the room. "I've heard that a parentless person enrolls here. Orphaned children usually come here and speak to the Hokage personally to enroll as a shinobi of Konoha," Hetsumi said, nodding her head, "but even then, they usually go to the academy first and get brought here by one of the instructors who look them over before bringing them here to get enrolled by the Hokage. Plus, the academy has already started, so this young man will be playing catch-up, she said, adding that it was not up to her whether he was accepted or not. Okay, young man, Hetsumi finally replied, getting to her feet. Let me tell Hokage-sama about you, and I'll call you in, okay? As she vanished behind the door, Naruto thanked her and nodded. She returned to her desk to go over the paperwork, and after a few seconds she called Naruto in. The blonde man behind the desk is Minato Namikaze, the older redhead is Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, and the younger redhead is Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze. Naruto reached for the door, where the pull from earlier was so strong that it gave him a slight headache. When he opened the door, he saw 6 other people, 3 of whom he noticed were almost constantly reoccurring in his thoughts. Her skin was a healthy tan, she was about average height for children her age, perhaps an inch taller, and she wore a dark orange shirt with a red swirl on the front, gray slacks, and green sandals. Naruko was a young girl, perhaps 6 or 7 years old, with slightly long, red hair tied in tight pigtails, and gorgeous blue eyes that would make the seas jealous and the skies weep. Naruto was able to identify the other residents by looking into their eyes and was certain that they were Hyuga, but that was the extent of his knowledge. The first individual was an older man, perhaps in his late 30s, with long black hair and a calculating gaze. He was dressed in a long-sleeved brown haori that reached his feet, which were covered by gray shinobi sandals. Another man, wearing a green vest with many pockets on the front, dark blue pants, a pouch on his left hip, and a headband tied to his forehead, the kind he saw all shinobi wear, stood next to him. He had the same stoic expression and pupilless white eyes as the other man. The third and last person was a young girl who was the same age as him and Naruto. Unlike the 2 men next to her, she had indigo blue hair. Like the men, she had pupil-less lavender white eyes, indicating that she was also a Hyuga. She wore a tan haori that was a bit too large for her petite frame, and when Naruto entered the room, she hid behind the older men's legs in an attempt to blend in. Hey, young man, how may I be of assistance? Even though he already knew what he wanted, Minato asked the silver-haired boy in a courteous manner. He was with his family and best friend from his genin days because, to be honest, he didn't think anyone else would be in today. His eyes shifted from the older blonde to the small redhead, and as they locked, Naruto felt it again. The strong pulse that kept calling out to him was coming from the young girl, the same girl whose memories he kept seeing. Naruto stared at Minato, as if he was trying to process the question he asked or if he was a threat to himself. Why was he again? What was the true reason he came here? Because he could care less about joining a village. He bowed and said, "Greetings Hokage Minato, my name is Naruto Otsutsuki." The man's eyes appeared to harden a little when Naruto looked at the young girl for too long. The adults in the room were surprised by his behavior for 2 reasons. First, he was one of the most courteous kids they had encountered outside of the Hyuga or Uchiha clans. Second, based on his shirtless torso and somewhat soiled clothes, he wasn't wealthy. Third, he was impolite to address Minato by his given name because he was the Hokage and should only be addressed as such. As for my being here, it's like I told the lady outside the door, I would like to join the academy and the village. I also would like to figure out why I am being pulled towards that girl, towards Naruko, he added mentally, noticing the shocked expression he was receiving and being perplexed by the reason. Minato shook off his daze and gave Naruto a cautious look. I don't see why not. Minato started, but his wife cut him off because her maternal instincts were finally too strong to ignore after witnessing the condition and what he was wearing. Where are your parents? They ought to be with you here, Kushina asked quite directly. Naruto looked at her, tilting his head to the side, making the girls bite back a kawaii at how adorable he looked. My parents. Naruko, who had been staring at Naruto since he entered, was the first to reply. Yeah. Similar to your parents. In response, Naruto shook his head and said, as far as I can recall, which is regrettably not that much, I don't have any. Before coming here, I spent some time in a nearby town after waking up alone in a forest. Everyone was taken aback by this news, but the adults were particularly shocked by the implications of what Naruto had said. This boy, who was no older than either of their daughters, had come to Konoha alone, and they could tell he wasn't lying. Despite their disbelief, Naruto went on. All right, can I move into the village? Although he had his response because he wasn't very interested in releasing a child back into the wild, Minato took a moment to consider it. Yes Naruto-sana, Minato started to respond before the child interrupted him. The young boy with the silver hair said, "Just call me Naruto." While his friend Hiyashi appeared irritated by the boy's impolite interruption, Minato smiled at him and said, "As you wish, Naruto. I see no reason for you to be excluded from my village." "Thank you, Minato-san," Naruto said, grinning slightly. "Does that mean I can join as a ninja of the village as well?" "That request is going to be a bit more difficult to give you, I'm afraid," Minato said softly, grinning at Naruto with a more contrite expression as he shook his head. "The academy has already been started for about a month now. You must unlock your chakra in order to be admitted to the academy. This is done and taught during the first week. So I'm afraid that..." Minato trailed off slowly, losing his train of thought as he saw what was happening in front of him. As if defying the planetary force known as gravity, the boy's silver hair was spiked upward, and his body appeared to glow blue as the wind blew faster around him. The dust also spun faster, and some of the wood creaked against the force that was determined to break it. His hair, like everyone else's in the room, flapped around as the strong winds blew through the room, and his daughter and the young Hyuga girl covered their faces to try to block out the stinging winds. Minato exclaimed in his mind, "How does this boy have so much chakra?" The only person he knew who had this much chakra at such a young age was his own daughter, who had the advantage of being both an Uzumaki and a Jinchuriki of the 9 tails, as well as the daughter of a previous Jinchuriki of the same tailed beast. Because of his sensei's spy network, he is aware of each Jinchuriki's identity, and this boy was most definitely not one of them. The three Hyugas were relieved that they had not used their Byakugan because the amount of chakra that Naruto was releasing would have caused them to go blind. The fact that someone else possessed so much chakra shocked Kushina and Naruto. Before Naruto could say anything, 4 Anbu members appeared around him with their weapons drawn, causing him to tense up as he prepared to defend himself. Naruto, who had finally stopped pushing his chakra, took a deep breath and observed the shocked expressions of the room's other occupants. "Stand down," Minato ordered, and he composed himself. The Anbu glanced at their Hokage in mild disapproval, but they nodded in agreement and disappeared again into their hiding places. Minato turned to face Naruto and smiled softly, saying, "I must admit that I am impressed by the amount of chakra that you possess, Naruto. Are you certain that you want to enroll in the academy right now? You'll need to catch up on a lot of things." "Yes, I am sure, sir," Naruto replied, "I will manage just fine. Plus, this way I will be able to find out why I am being pulled towards that Naruto girl." Naruto nodded resolutely, staying vigilant in case he needs to defend himself. "All right then," Minato said, reaching under his desk for some papers and a pen. "Just give me a moment to sign these for you." Naruto gave the man a nod. "After all this I still do not know your names," Naruto said to the other people in the room, mostly the Hyugas. "We apologize for the rudeness," the Hyugas said, bowing slightly as they realized he was right. "As the leader of the Hyuga clan, I am Hiyashi Hyuga. This is branch family member Tahashi Hyuga. The young child is Hinata Hyuga, the Hyuga clan heiress and my eldest daughter." "It's a pleasure to meet you all," Naruto said, grinning at the Hyuga members after nodding. "Hinata-san, Tahashi-san, and Hiyashi-san." Hinata's face turned as red as a tomato the instant Naruto said her name. When Naruto noticed this, he wondered what was wrong with the young Hyuga but chose to ignore it. Sensing that someone was getting closer to him, Naruto was shocked to see Naruto right in front of him. "Hello, what you did was so cool," Naruto said, not at all disturbed by their close proximity. "I mean, I had to unlock my chakra once before as well, but I mistakenly believed that my mother and I were the only ones. Oh, I'm Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze." You could see that her body was practically vibrating with excitement if you looked closely. Naruto discovered early on that she liked a challenge, which is why she has enjoyed sparring with her family even though she hasn't defeated them. Naruto's power has made her instincts scream with excitement at the thought of facing a formidable foe. Gazing into her eyes, Naruto felt her pull at his maximum strength, and he looked toward her stomach to see where the pull was coming from. "It's nice to meet you, Naruto-chan," Naruto said, realizing that she was waiting for a response. The sensation is coming from her stomach, he thought to himself. If that's the case, perhaps we can spar someday. His words caused Naruto's smile to widen, and she had to suppress the urge to give the silver-haired boy in front of her a joyful hug. She was eager for the opportunity to spar, and her friend Sasuke was the only one who resisted. "Okay, Naruto," Minato said, passing Naruto the documents. These documents will inform Iruka that you are a new student at the academy and that I have given you permission to enroll. Additionally, those will help you find a place to stay that is close to here due to the fact that you do not have a home. Minato then gave him an envelope and said, "This is the cost of the apartment until you start doing missions. It's not the most amazing place, but it's still cozy. You won't have to worry about repaying it if everything goes well. If you fail or drop out, that's a different matter entirely." Have I been understood? Minato crossed his arms to conclude his explanation. I understand, Hokage-san, Naruto said, nodding his head in comprehension of the circumstances. He bowed in gratitude and turned to head for the exit, but as he was about to do so, a female voice called out to him. "Are you even aware of how to get there?" He turned around and saw that the person who had spoken up was Kushina Uzumaki, the older redhead from the memories he had disclosed. When he finally registered the question, he shook his head because he didn't know where to go. "Well, I was going to take Naruto and Hinata home, and since the location Minato gave you is nearby, how about we take a stroll together?" After giving it some thought, Naruto nodded and accepted her offer, saying, "Thank you, I would be very grateful for your help." Even though she felt strange because she wasn't used to this, Kushina grinned at his civility before kissing the Yondaime on the cheek and escorting the three kids through the door. Before they reached Naruto's new apartment, the four of Tama, mostly the three kids, spoke for a good 10 minutes. His eyes narrowed slightly as he examined the tiny numbers scattered throughout the building before locating his. Apparently, he was in room 55, which was only 2 stories from the top floor. Naruto walked into his new apartment room, said goodbye to Kushina, and looked around the tiny one-bedroom apartment slowly, telling him he could find his home from there. It was nothing particularly remarkable, as the Hokage had stated. There was a small living room with a single window that provided a pleasant view of the village, curtains adorned with the Konoha symbol, a small kitchen with a stove, microwave, and refrigerator, and 2 doors down the hall that led to a nice little bedroom with a closet, another window, a decent-sized bed and dresser, and a bathroom with a decent-sized bathtub. All in all, it was ideal for a single person living here. A voice said, "So, this is our new home for now, young lord," and Naruto leapt to his feet. Then, with his eyes sharpened, he looked around for the voice. "Relax, young lord, I'm not here to hurt you. Furthermore, if you were to search for me in that manner, you would never find me." "Who are you?" Naruto questioned as he relaxed slightly. He felt that the voice was no threat to him, but he was still going to be careful. "What do you want from me? You're where?" "Well, young lord, I'm here to help you in a way as a friend. You have other people's memories instead of your own, and I'm here to support you on your journey to power and strength." "What do I want from you?" "It's for you to become the most powerful creature on the planet, as you ought to be. Why don't I simply bring you to where I am?" His vision turned dark and blurry before Naruto could ask him what he meant, and when it started to clear up a few seconds later, he realized that he was no longer in his apartment but rather in a damp tunnel surrounded by a forest of trees, the floor of which was flooded with water up to his ankles, the trees themselves surrounded by a black mist that was just light enough to see ahead, the sky was crimson with black clouds, and the moon was pure white. "Where am I?" Naruto didn't specifically ask anyone. The same voice that had said, "You are in your own mindscape, young lord," appeared behind Naruto, who turned to face the creature. The wolf pup was small, barely larger than his shoulders, with pure snow white on the right half of its body and pitch black fur on the left. Its pupils were slits, just like his, but they were different colors, the left pupil being white with a black iris and the right pupil being black with a white iris. The sclera of both eyes were crimson, giving Naruto the impression that they were pools of blood. It had a single long tail that appeared both fluffy and strong. Its legs were small, but Naruto could see the muscle in them, and its fangs were small but razor-sharp, easily tearing through the flesh of its prey. With a small bow and a fierce grin, the pup said, "Hello, young lord. It's good to see you face to face after all this time." The word, lord, is typically used to refer to a ruler or someone of importance, so why was this wolf pup using it to refer to him? What did he mean by mindscape? "Yes, same here," Naruto said bewilderedly. The wolf pup sat down and remarked, "I can see that you are confused, young lord. Well, to start off, I am a power construct. In a way, I am an expression of your power. I get stronger the stronger you get. You can refer to me by my name, Jubi. 10 Tails. But wouldn't the fact that you only have one make you more Ikibi?" When Naruto heard the puppy growl angrily, he asked and then stepped back. "You're mistaken. I apologize for losing my composure, young lord, Jubi screamed angrily before finally inhaling deeply. Even when we are weak, we are a very powerful being. We only have one tail because we are once again becoming stronger. We're not a one-tails. After that, what happened to us? Why are we weakened in the first place? Inquired Naruto. Jubi grinned assuredly and scoffed. He paused and considered it carefully, his face contorted in bewilderment as he tilted his head sideways. It's quite simple. What happened, Wasa? I don't remember myself actually, he said. I can't remember how we got there, but I know we were in a seal. So why do I feel so natural when I use my chakra, with no problems at all? Naruto sighed angrily at the puppy. What is the source of all these memories? Jubi looked down with a hint of annoyance and said, like I said, I do not remember, before he joyfully perked up and threw up his tail. But I know someone who might. Young lord, come with me. He hurried away, only occasionally turning around to check if Naruto was pursuing him. As they walked, Naruto noticed that the water on the floor rose higher as they went, changing from clear to a pure mixture of colors. Naruto followed the young pulp in silence, wondering who it was that Jubi was referring to. The sensation that rushed through him made him feel euphoric and amazing, like a comforter on a cold day. The trees surrounding them grew larger and appeared much stronger than before. Many of them even had fruit hanging from their powerful branches. However, Naruto was drawn to a single tree in a small clearing that was larger than all the others. It had many powerful branches that dripped various colors of liquid, and at the top of the tree was a closed bud that resembled a flower before it bloomed. The tree itself was pale in color, much like the moon above, and as he stared at it, he felt a strong connection. As he stood in front of the tree, Jubi remarked, "This tree represents you and you're just as much as I do. This tree is named Shinju and represents both your will and strength. Additionally, it contains the majority of your spiritual knowledge and experiences. Your chakra is represented by the water that drips off it and floods the floor, and even in our weakened state, it is a significant amount." The pale tree, the Shinju, started to glow slightly as its branches flowed to an invisible breeze, and Naruto noticed that the hairs on the wolf pup pricked up as he appeared to gain a faint ring in his eyes. Naruto was startled as he looked at the water, which was just barely above his ankles, and he called upon his chakra to watch the water begin to bubble and move like a river. "As you can see," Jubi went on, "both Shinju and I are drawn in when you channel your chakra. As far as I'm aware, pulling on pure or elemental chakra makes Shinju glow brighter. I shine brighter when you pull on your yin or yang chakra because you will be drawing from me. Shinju and I are two sides of the same coin. Why don't we ask Shinju why we were imprisoned?" With a bewildered look, Naruto hummed, Jubi, I hate to tell you, but that is just a tree. It isn't able to respond to us verbally." Jubi laughed and said, "That is where you are wrong. The Shinju is a living being just as much as you and I. Actually, at least for the time being, its power might be more potent and dense than mine. Since it's us, only you and I can speak to Shinju here. Make contact with it, and Shinju will respond. Try it, you young lord." Naruto felt a powerful pull before he could ask him how he was supposed to connect to a tree. The water swirled around his legs, and he experienced a warmth that cleared his mind and body of all confusion. A female voice said to him, "Hello my young lord, it's an honor to have you visit me so early, even if it's only for information." The voice was strong as it reverberated to him, but it was also tender and compassionate, and it also sounded muted, as if there were danger concealed behind the goodwill. "Shinju, is that you?" As he stared at the enormous tree, which had a very divine appearance due to its soft white glow, he asked. "Yes, young lord," the voice said, identifying itself as the Shinju. "I am able to create a connection that allows us to communicate when my power connects to your construct or even your chakra in general." "Build a form?" Naruto questioned as he looked over his small body curiously. "What is that?" Since he didn't feel any different, he thought he was either in a summon realm, dreaming, or another dimension. Something he recalled, or, perhaps he should say, the memory that is constantly flashing with details. Shinju said softly, "You see young lord, you are not actually here," adding that you are just a projection of your chakra into your mental landscape, a portion of your spirit and chakra projected into a mental space. Jubi and I live here to help you realize your full potential, which could go horribly wrong if not handled properly. So, Shinju, exactly who or what am I? I appear to be human, but I don't feel like that is correct, Naruto inquired gravely. "I don't feel anything like any human. Naruto and her mother were the closest to my feelings, but even they felt different from me. And what is it about that girl from Naruto that appeals to me so much? Shinju responded, well, the first question has an answer that I have none for unfortunately, young lord. Even though we may act as independent beings due to our self-awareness, we are still merely your creations. Usually, young lord, we only know as much as you do. We only know a little bit more than you because we have had more time to sort through those flashbacks. We won't know the cause of the ceiling or our situation until you find out. What about the girl from Naruto? Naruto inquired. I don't know all the specifics, Shinju retorted. As Jubi previously suggested, his power will increase proportionately to you, and as a result, his tail count will increase with each notable increase in power. According to what I've learned, you are drawn to the girl because she possesses a power that is comparable to Jubi's. She is a Jinchuriki with a creature known as a Biju inside of her, based on what I was able to deduce from the memories. I still struggle to go through everything because the memories are a little hard to piece together and make sense of, so I'm not sure what a Biju is in its entirety. As he attempted to review all of the new knowledge he had gained, Naruto muttered, so, I am something called a Jinchuriki, asking, do you know what kind of creature she has within her since I am one and I hold both of you? According to the memories, it's in the shape of a fox with 9 tails altogether, replied Shinju. Its complete appearance is foggy young lord. Naruto thought aloud, maybe she will know more about this whole thing, and decided to ask her. That would be wise young lord, Shinju retorted, regaining the Otsutsuki child's interest. The girl is an unidentified Jinchuriki based on the memories. Only a small number of people are aware of the title. I still don't know why, but it seems like her parents wanted it to stay a secret. In any case, it would not reflect well on you as an outsider who is aware of a title that is kept a secret from the people who live there. So, Jubi, Shinju, what should I do? Every time Naruto takes a positive step forward, he is blown back farther than he walked, causing him to sigh in frustration and rub the back of his head. This time, Jubi said, for now, young lord, I would say that you should just live your life and become stronger. We must, after all, be the strongest that has ever existed and ever will exist. The water around them trembled violently as the young wolf pup squatted in an aggressive stance, growling and boosting his power. Power and strength make life easier and the world respects those two qualities. Naruto questioned and thought Jubi was correct because of the seriousness in his tone. Shinju retorted, your approach will only make us more enemies than we need. Kindness and a strong mind can give you a better, if not the same results as that. I agree that we should make the most of this time to increase our strength, but we should also make more allies. Just like with Jubi, Naruto was taken aback by the strength in her tone and assumed she was correct. A good heart and a strong body can really change the world. For him, everything was so perplexing. Naruto crossed his arms over his chest and said, I guess I'll just go along with the one thing you both agreed on. I'll sort through all the information that is in my head and go on from there, while I train at the Ninja Academy. Perhaps more hints about my identity and the reasons behind my isolation will come to light. As his bewilderment increased and his face twisted in contemplation, Naruto started to worry. How do I get out of here anyway? He heard Jubi chuckling darkly and Shinju giggling melodiously. As she recovered, Shinju said, it's just a matter of willing yourself out of here. Oh, and don't be alarmed if you wake up hearing us in your head. We can communicate with you telepathically because there isn't a physical seal to prevent us from doing so. Simply talk to us mentally, and we'll be able to communicate with you through a link. As Jubi's long tail moved until its tip touched Naruto's forehead, he said, for the time being, I'll let you out until you get used to it, young lord. Good luck, young lord, and don't worry. We will do everything in our power to support you. We'll be strong and unstoppable. Naruto's eyes closed and his body disappeared, and the next thing he knew was darkness. The apartment of Naruto. The boy with silver hair, breathing heavily and a little sweating, jolted out of bed. He glanced around and saw that he was back in his room, which was brighter than it had been the night before because of the sunlight streaming in through the window. He looked down and saw that he was still wearing clothes from the day before. When did I go to bed? Naruto asked, unable to recall ever going to bed. The voice of Shinju said, that's because you didn't, young lord, and Naruto jumped in surprise. It's just me, Shinju, speaking via our new link that was established last night, so don't panic. Regarding the bed, you didn't choose to go to sleep. I took over your body so you wouldn't be sleeping on the floor while you were speaking to us, mostly Jubi. Naruto started. Okay, that makes sense, but his eyes widened fearfully. Wait, you can take over my body. Jubi said. Calm down, young lord. It's not like you're thinking. We can control your body, but only in 2 situations. If you allow us to do so, that is the first. The second condition is when your body is empty and you have no defense against us, such as when you are inexplicably unconscious. What happened here is the second option. Naruto stood up and looked at his reflection, his shirt wrinkled and his silver hair appearing slightly disheveled. He nodded his head. Naruto thought, I should probably start heading to this academy since I have no idea where it is, but then he remembered something else. The Hokage Tower and a well-known road were shown in this memory, along with the silhouette of a small child running along the path that led to another building. The building was large and featured numerous other small silhouettes entering it, with the words, Ninja Academy, prominently displayed. Naruto shook his head, blinking, then tilted it to relieve the mild irritation. Well, that was a lot of help, he said. So that I don't miss my first day, let's start now. He sensed 2 more chakra signatures on the other side of his door and stopped to make sure it was secure before realizing he knew who was there. When he opened the door, Kushina and Naruto were there, grinning. With a cheerful wave, Naruto said, Good morning, Naruto-kun. We came to show you to the academy since Mom remembered that we forgot to tell you how to get there, Naruto said. Naruto nodded his head, grinned back, and thanked the 2 girls for their assistance and not that he needed Ida before turning and locking his apartment door and saying, Let's go. You seem to be wearing the same outfit as yesterday, so hold on, young man. Kushina asked him. Tilting his head to the side in confusion, he nodded in confirmation. Did you even wash up? Lady Kushina, I don't have any other clothes besides what I am wearing right now, Naruto said, shaking his head as he realized where she was going. I don't have any money to buy new clothes because I haven't received the money your husband mentioned. I also fell asleep as soon as I got home because my trip here was so long and exhausting. I also discovered that I have no idea how to get to the academy or even what time it begins. I therefore had to hurry in order to arrive on time. Well, lucky for you that the academy doesn't start for another hour and we are only about 15 minutes away by walk, so, you have enough time to shower, said Naruto. If we have so much time left, why are you both here so early? Curious, Naruto asked. I like to get there early to hang with Hinata-chan and my other friends, Naruto smiled in response. With a maternal smile, Kushina said, So, go ahead, Naruto-kun. Take a quick shower and we'll need to head to the academy afterwards. The 2 girls were invited inside by Naruto, who nodded as he unlocked the door and said, Please settle in, the couch isn't the best. As the 2 Uzumaki girls sat down, he went to his room, where he could use the soap that was already in the bathroom. I shouldn't be too long. As she looked around the living room, Naruto remarked, Naruto-kun sure is strange, pointing out that he is too young to be traveling alone. He moves similarly to the academy's seniors, but with far more skill. It is strikingly similar to the movements of the Chunin in the village. Naruto, you always were observant, Kushina thought with a proud smile as she turned to face Naruto and heard the shower start. Naruto seems to be a warrior in his own way, with how his arms always pause for the briefest of moments by his weapons or where they should be at. His breathing is low and quiet while gaze seems to be always analyzing, not to mention that his steps are quiet and short, as if stealth was required for him. Minato was right, we may need to keep an eye on him in case he poses a threat. The problem was that they couldn't ignore a child with as much chakra as Naruto simply entering their village. It was a very fortified village, and this kid was able to enter without being checked very easily. Minato, despite his kindness, was no fool at all. They couldn't just screen a child as young as Naruto without a good reason, and the backlash could be severe. The Chunin who guarded the gate were passed out and appeared to be caught in genjutsu when they were checked. All of that made no sense because a child that age shouldn't have been able to do that. At the moment, the village was under a covert lockdown while other shinobi surreptitiously searched the area for any strange faces or objects, and Iruka and Mizuki were told to keep a careful watch on Naruto and report anything suspicious. Speaking of the young man, he descended the stairs wearing the same clothes as before. His clothes were still wrinkled, but they had been slightly smoothed out, and his hair was smoothed out save for a small spike at the forehead. Should we leave? The girls nodded, and they all departed as he said hello. Naruto and Naruto talked about a variety of topics as they walked to the academy. She told him about fantastic training areas, restaurants that served delectable food or strands of delicious sweets, and fantastic places to just lounge and unwind, basically anything she could talk about as they passed. Surprised that he could even follow along, Naruto nodded his head at everything Naruto discussed. He occasionally nodded out of attention because of a memory, but otherwise he listened intently. Sensing that someone was watching him, Naruto stealthily turned to the left and saw an Anbu member glance at him from an alley before vanishing. He then noticed that there were more shinobi than he had seen the day before, all of them carrying more weapons than he could recall. They seemed to be getting ready for trouble, he thought, but why do they keep staring at me and then turning away? He heard Jubi say, I might have an idea, but we'll discuss that later. The girl just inquired about your hometown, by the way. With a sheepish smile, Naruto turned back to Naruto and said, I apologize, I kind of spaced out there for a moment. To be honest, I'm not sure how to respond to you. Naruto's response left the young blonde girl perplexed. How can you not know where you are from? Well, aside from waking up next to a few trees, I don't remember much. I suppose I have amnesia based on what an elderly man told me, given the fresh blood and pain on my head. I therefore can't recall what hurt me so much. Oh, that must have been so scary for you, Naruto-kun, Naruto said, frowning sadly. Well, I'm glad you made it safely here. What brought you to Konoha in the first place? He lied, thinking he should be careful not to give away too much, saying, Konoha was just the closest choice for me to go to. The old man who helped me told me about the villages, he said. That made enough sense, so Naruto and Kushina nodded. But who taught you how to unlock your chakra? As she attempted to elicit information from the boy with the silver hair, Kushina asked. The old man did actually, he said. Well, at least he gave me some basic instructions and an old scroll that contained instructions. He assisted me because I wanted to become a ninja after learning about the villages. So far, he just seemed to be a gifted young man with a lot of potential. Kushina listened carefully to his responses in an attempt to find any lies he might be telling, and she was happy to find any since they all made sense. The academy was not large, but it was very wide, with lots of open space for sparring. Different areas were designated for different training exercises. The two gate doors were open as children entered, both individually and in groups. Kushina said, well kids, we are here, and she looked forward and realized she was correct. I hope you both have a wonderful day and I'll be back to pick you both up after school. The young Otsutsuki gave her a perplexed look, not understanding why she would pick him up as well, since he now knew how to get home from here. Yes, you too, young man. We're going shopping to make sure you have everything you need, including fresh clothes, food, and water. Don't worry about it, I'll cover the cost this time. Uncertain of why the Uzumaki woman would extend such a generous offer, Naruto's eyes widened. Not that I'm unappreciative, but why? I don't need you to do that. Nonsense, Naruto-kun. Kushina cheerfully dismissed it, saying, I don't mind at all, it's no trouble at all. I know firsthand how difficult it can be to be an orphan in a strange new village. Consider it my way of lending a hand to a fellow human being. Furthermore, I can't abandon you without making an effort to assist you. And I could spend more time with you and find out if you're safe or not. And I could never forgive myself if I did. She is a shinobi on a mission, and even though she is helping Naruto out of kindness, she still needs to ensure that the silver-haired boy in front of her poses no threat to her family or the village. Thank you so much, Lady Kushina, Naruto said, surprising Naruto with the warmth of her smile and causing her to blush a little. Okay, bye mom, Naruto said, taking Naruto's hand. Let's go, Naruto-kun. My friends, I want to show you. She dragged the young man with her, and they both dashed into the structure. The Hokage's wife vanished and then resurfaced on a rooftop a short distance from the academy, her smile gone and replaced by a more solemn expression, and she kept her eyes on the academy while she spoke. So, anything to report? Beside her, a young man with short blue hair appeared in a whirlwind of leaves and wind. He was dressed in the traditional Anbu uniform, wearing an otter mask and the standard tanto on his left shoulder blade. He said, no ma'am, adding that his apartment had been inspected and found to be clean. Beaver claims that when he spoke to you all, he had no malice in his heart and didn't appear to be lying. As she heard what she could personally verify, Kushina nodded her head. Is there any chance that he might be a sleeper? All it takes to activate a sleeper agent is a remote trigger, a phrase, or even a word, and their motivation is usually unknown until the very last minute, making sleeper agents one of the biggest concerns for a shinobi village. Typically, Even the agent is unaware that they are being controlled to harm others. Otter gave a blank response. That is still a possibility, Lady Kushina, adding, we are still investigating everything. Hokage-sama has already been notified. As she considered her next move, Kushina nodded. Otter, get 2 more Anbu with you. We're going to check Naruto-kun's apartment for any problems. Kushina gave the academy one last glance before disappearing in a swirl of water, and the Anbu nodded before disappearing in a swirl of leaves to fulfill his orders. At the academy, the young man noticed that many children were staring at Naruto and Naruto as they strolled together. Some were curious, some were envious, and still others were perplexed. Naruto saw several of the guys glaring at him. Why do some of them look angry at me? He wondered, perplexed. Did I do something to anger them? He heard Jubi scoff and say, don't worry about them, young lord. It's just the pathetic trying to intimidate the strong. They are attempting to instill fear in you out of misplaced pride since you have essentially entered their domain. Pride is such a blinding and dangerous emotion, causing weak-minded idiots to act foolishly if they perceive damage to it. Jubi, aren't you pleased with your own power? Shinju inquired, receiving a growl of rage in return. Shiju, how dare you liken me to these stupid kids? Being proud is okay, but you need to have a strong mind so you're not blinded by it. Like most of these humans act from the memories that we have collected, Jubi growled. I'm proud of my strength and, consequently, the young lord's power, but I don't let that make me lose sight of the world. When the two started arguing, Naruto ignored them and turned back to Naruto, who had stopped moving and was staring at him worriedly. In response to her concern, he smiled warmly and said, I apologize, I was a little anxious. Being the new guy in a new place and all that, he lied in an attempt to calm her fears. She smiled at him so brightly that the sun seemed pale in contrast, so he assumed it worked. No need to worry, Naruto-kun. You won't be alone or without a friend because I'm here to support you. He couldn't help but nod and return her contagious smile as she said, plus, my friends are cool, so they will be your friends too. As they walked into a spacious classroom with multiple rows, he thought, she is a really nice person. He noticed that students were already there, conversing in various groups, and as he looked around, he saw the same girl from yesterday sitting anxiously by herself. Hinata-chan. Good morning. Naruto waved to the bashful Hyuga and shouted joyfully. Hinata lifted her head, then gave a joyful smile and waved back, though more timidly. She said, good morning to you too, Naruto-chan, just before the young Uzumaki girl gave her a hug. After pointing behind her, Naruto smiled and said, you recall Naruto-kun from yesterday, correct? She asked, and her friend nodded. Since Naruto was her best friend, she was able to control her shyness. She still stutters when she meets new people, but at least she doesn't do it as much as she used to. Good morning Naruto-san, she said shyly, bowing quickly to avoid looking into his eyes. Good morning to you too, Hinata-san, Naruto said, returning the bow. How pitiful. Don't submit to a weakling like that. For someone like us, it is beneath. In his mind, Jubi roared, his voice clearly filled with disgust. Shinju calmly retorted, calm down Jubi, she is still young. She has time to mature and grow before she can unleash her true potential. Yeah, the potential to waste my time, Jubi snarled in response to his growl. Kid, don't waste your time hanging around this weakling. She will only prevent us from moving forward. Don't listen to him, young lord, Shinju retorted in a worn-out voice. Everyone develops their strength over time. In the future, she will be a powerful ally. When the time comes, having a friendship with her will be worthwhile. Quote. Naruto nodded in agreement with the strong tree, and it didn't hurt that he thought the Hyuga girl was adorable, had a calming voice, and was close to Naruto. With a gentle smile, Naruto said, I hope you are doing well today Hinata-san, causing the Hyuga girl to blush and nod. Before they could say anything, another boy and a small dog rushed into the room, and they heard a loud holler from behind them. A good head shorter than Naruto, the boy had wild spiky hair and was on the short side. He wore a light brown V-neck shirt and light beige shorts, and he wore the traditional blue shinobi sandals that extended past his ankles. He had slit pupils, fangs and claws instead of teeth and nails, and 2 red triangles on each cheek. The puppy behind him was small, barely reaching the young man's ankles, and had long, floppy ears with a brown center on the outside. The dog was light beige. Oh, it appears that I have won, Akamaru. The dog barked in response to the wild boy's yell, no boy, remember that everything is fair. You didn't jump over the trash can in time, and it's not my fault. Naruto cocked his head to the side, unable to identify the young man, and hesitated for a moment as a second memory of a smaller, dogless version of the young man flashed into his mind, showing him smiling broadly while playing with other people and dogs. Oh, that's Kiba Inuzuka, the heir to the Inuzuka clan, Naruto said, nodding as he saw Naruto glancing at Kiba. Taijutsu and nin dog training are their areas of expertise as a clan. Despite his occasional haughtiness and annoyance, he is a decent man. Jubi scoffed at the fact that Naruto had a respectable amount of chakra for his age, but he ignored it and watched as Kiba sat down close to the back with his dog in his arms. Then Naruto noticed two more young men who came in slowly. The first boy had a spiky ponytail, wore a gray shirt with blue cuffs, had a strange symbol on the front that kind of looked like a wave, and was a head shorter than Naruto. He also wore blue shorts and blue shinobi sandals, and he looked like he would rather be somewhere else than here as he looked forward with a weary expression. The next boy, who was just as tall as the first, was wearing blue overalls and a light green long-sleeved shirt. He had faded swirls on his plump cheeks, was heavy-set, and had blue shinobi sandals. He was eating a bag of chips as he entered behind the first boy, and he was much more enthusiastic. The two simply entered and sat close to the window without exchanging words. Naruto sat next to Hinata and explained, "Oh, the boy with the spiky ponytail is Shikamaru Nara and the heir to the Nara clan," adding that the clan is known for employing shadow techniques and that they are extremely intelligent but don't particularly enjoy doing much. Beside him is Choji Akamichi, the heir to the Akamichi clan and his closest friend. Despite occasionally being teased for his weight, he is a really sweet guy. What do they have a reputation for? Curious, Naruto asked, and Naruto shrugged, not knowing much about the clan because she doesn't play with them much. The Akamichi clan is renowned for their high chakra levels and body-based jutsu. Hinata replied, "It's part of the reason they weigh so much, it adds to their skills and chakra." Because her clan is very strict, she had to learn how the other clans operated at a young age, and being the heir made it more expected. As he listened, Naruto nodded and agreed that Choji had a good amount of chakra, not nearly as much as Naruto or himself, but still a respectable amount. He sat silently beside Naruto and observed her conversing with Hinata, occasionally joining in. After an hour, the class was full of other students, some of whom talked to Naruto while others did not. Even a few students noticed him and greeted him with a few interested boys and some giggling girls. Shortly after, a man with dark eyes, a scar across his nose, the typical flak jacket of a jonin, blue shinobi sandals, and the Konoha headband entered, his spiky brown hair pulled back in a ponytail like Shikamaru's. "Good morning everyone," the man said as he made his way to the teacher's desk. "Mizuki won't be joining us because he had something to do. We will review the standard taijutsu forms that I instructed everyone to practice last week. We will then practice both close quarters and throwing weapons. We will then take a lunch break before going back inside to study shinobi history and chakra theory." As he glanced at his students, he picked up his clipboard and said, "Remember that the academy jutsu will be tested on in 2 days. Okay, pay attention while I do roll call. Takamaru Aishi. Ino Yamanaka, the heir of the Yamanaka clan, Atsuki Anaru, a civilian who appeared to have a strong build, Hinata herself, and Hinaro Hyuga, a branch member of her clan, were the only people who had piqued Naruto's interest thus far. The teacher, whom he learned was named Iruka Yumino from Hinata, started calling out names, and he paid close attention so he could label the names with faces. Naruto quickly responded, "Here, sensei." With excitement. The teacher laughed when her name was called. Next is Naruto Otsutsuki, Iruka called. "It must be the new pupil that Hokage-sama told me about." Everyone's attention was drawn to Naruto as he stood up, and some were taken aback by how different he looked from other people they had seen. "Hello everyone, it's nice to meet you all," Naruto said, grinning slightly. "I have the note that Hokage-sama gave to me to give you, Iruka-sensei." "It's nice to meet you too, Naruto, and we will see your skills later so we can see what you need to work on," Iruka said, nodding as he checked off his name. "Additionally, when we go outside, I'll take the note from you." Naruto nodded and took his seat again, and Iruka went on. As with Hinata and Naruto, he felt a connection to the Uchiha twins, Sasuke and Satsuki, who are members of the well-known Uchiha clan. He will need to ask Jubi and Shinju about this later. He was also perplexed by a blonde girl named Ino Yamanaka, who was arguing with a pink-haired civilian girl named Sakura Haruno, whose chakra was at the same level as Ino's. Ino was nothing special, with her chakra reserves barely surpassing those of civilians. Jubi's disgust at the girl's perceived weakness was palpable to Naruto. With only a few moans, the class cheered and departed the room as Iruka said, "Okay, class, let's go outside so we can practice the academy taijutsu forms." As soon as everyone was outside, Iruka gathered the children into groups and started to examine them. The clan children were in a different group because they had their own style and didn't really need the academy's style. What do I do? Naruto thought before. His mind was flooded with information, but this time no images. His posture became more tense and loose, as if he was ready for a fight. He felt as though he had a fighting style, but he was unsure of where he should go or what the style was meant for. He also heard Jubi growl lightly, which worried him a little. "Jubi, Shinju, are you okay?" he asked his two tenants. He heard Jubi respond, "Yeah, we are okay, Naruto. I just had a fighting urge enter my instincts. Nothing significant." Naruto gave a nod. "While the academy style is interesting, go join the clan heirs," said Shinju. "The fighting style that me and Jubi put together for you is much more powerful than the academy style." Naruto nodded as he approached Naruko, who was performing her warm-ups with the heirs and was on her 15th push-up. Without pausing in her reps, Naruko looked curiously at her new friend and said, "You have a fighting style, Naruto-kun." Naruto shrugged as he considered his response to her question. "Sort of," Naruto answered, unsure whether to divulge too much because of his anxieties. "I learned some basic fighting forms from the old man that helped me before. I thought I'd come over here and join you guys." Iruka called out to Naruto as he was about to join his friend in her push-ups, and the young Otsutsuki approached the instructor, wondering why he had been called. "We normally don't get new students after the school year had already started," Iruka said. "The other students have already been assessed, so I'm going to personally test yours myself, that way the others can keep practicing." Naruto nodded, realizing why he had been summoned. "Be careful, young lord," Shinju cautioned. "While not sinister in nature, he is most likely doing this for another reason. He is most likely trying to see your threat level in case you become a liability to the village. After all, no leader could let a potential threat go unchecked, child or not." Naruto asked his two tenants, "So, what should I do here? Should I show what I know?" Jubi snarled, "Of course. Unleash our power on these fools and show them what we can do." "Naruto, it would be best if you hold back in this fight. You are an unknown, a threat in their eyes. If you show too much power, they may imprison you. As strong as we are not stronger than an entire village of experienced and strong warriors," Shinju calmly remarked. "Don't be so foolish, Jubi." "I agree," Naruto said, following his instincts and sliding into a fighting stance with his arms bent at a 90-degree angle, his hands slightly open, his legs spread and slightly bent, his eyes focusing and taking on a focused expression, and his body relaxing as best he could with a deep breath. It is not the most solid stance, but definitely a style that is useful. Tight yet loose enough for easy menu variability. A fighting stance that seems to be built for speed by the legs positioning. His feet are in a position that will allow him to flow around strikes that are too straightforward. Iruka also assumed a fighting stance, his eyes examining every single tense and relaxed muscle. "Start," Iruka declared as he charged Naruto, prepared to put the young man to the test and determine whether he posed a threat to his students in the village. Sensing more danger, Naruto leaned back as his teacher's leg sailed over him. Snapping back up straight, Naruto went on the offensive as he went for a straight punch that Iruka easily blocked, and the teacher lashed out with a kick that struck Naruto's chin. Naruto took a step back to avoid a punch aimed at his head, spun on his heel to the left as he dodged another strike aimed at his chin. The boy flew through the air, then flipped and landed softly on his feet, slipping back into his stance as a slight smile appeared on his face as he experienced a surge of excitement. Shinju soothed Naruto a little by saying, "Relax, young lord. Remember, we are still fighting on mere memories and instincts. To become stronger later, when no one is watching us, we need time to sort through everything. These people don't need to be wary of us at this time." As Naruto leapt over Iruka's punch and kicked off of Iruka's leg when he attempted a kick, Jubi said, "For the record, I am against this. I would rather everyone see just how powerful we are currently and imagine our strength as it only increases with time." Despite being dazed, Iruka managed to grab Naruto's leg and pull him forward, and with his other hand, he grabbed Naruto's other arm and pinned the silver-haired boy to the ground. Naruto laughed lightly as he kicked Iruka in the side and pushed away a punch from Iruka, then elbowed him in the chest before kicking Iruka in the side of the head with his heel. Naruto wriggled and squirmed on the ground in an attempt to break free, feeling a surge of power as he growled in rage and let his instincts direct the energy rush to his muscles. He slammed his free right arm onto the ground and started to push as he slowly raised Iruka and himself. "Stop, Naruto," he heard Shinju yell out to him as the chakra that was in his arm got cut off from his lack of guidance and he slammed back into the ground. "You were calling on both yours and Jubi's chakra in your frustration and was beginning to overpower Iruka. I think it will best for you to call the match before we reveal something that would make us look like a threat." After giving this some thought, Naruto mentally nodded in agreement as the power rush subsided. Naruto said to the teacher, "I give up, sir," in a voice that carried a hint of irritation. He was upset that he had to stop using his chakra, even though he could see why he should hide. Compared to now, he felt more whole and at ease with it. The instant the chakra stopped racing through him, he felt empty. He missed the thoughtful glance his teacher was giving him because he was staring down. He was able to raise both of us off the ground, though it was only for a brief moment. He would have broken my grip if I hadn't used extra force. In addition, he experienced a sharp surge of chakra prior to its interruption. Even though it was unstable, he performed incredibly well because channeling chakra to your limbs is a sophisticated technique that isn't taught until later in the academy. However, he didn't appear to be aware that he was doing it. "What else do you have, I wonder?" He saw Naruto roll his sore shoulder and approach the boy with silver hair. "Well, Naruto, you are quite skilled for someone your age," Iruka remarked, grinning slightly. "You have a few things that we will need to refine and help you work on, but your style definitely holds an impressive amount of speed and power behind it. Not to mention you have an impressive amount of chakra control considering what the notes I got from the Hokage detailing how you got some of your skill. While it still needs work due to how much chakra you were either wasting or how unstable it became quickly, it was impressive nonetheless." Feeling a surge of pride at his words, Naruto nodded at the brief assessment of his abilities. Yes, he was holding back because of Shinju's advice, but he could also see that the Chunin was holding back a lot because they didn't use any chakra during their brief fight. If he's this good, what can I learn from him? Perhaps gaining more strength will enable me to discover more about myself. Shinju said, "Yes, there seems to be much that we can learn from this teacher of yours, with curiosity. We can only learn so much from these random flashes after all." "Hey, whatever," scoffed Jubi. "If we had used all the techniques that are in our mind like the one we used when we first woke up, then we would have won. That guy would have been a smear at best on the floor." "Yeah, sure, let loose a tailed beast bomb in the middle of an, already suspicious of us, village and kill the teacher," Shinju replied with disdain. "Oh, also keep in fact that the attack would only have worked if we could hit him and that only would have worked if we caught him off guard. If he stays aware, then we would probably lose due to his skills still being an unknown to us and they would have to at least be decent if he is a teacher. If we did kill him, then this entire village would be on us in seconds and we can say goodbye to any chance of learning who and what we really are." The Jubi just grumbled in rage as he turned away from the enormous tree, with nothing to counter his reasoning. Naruto was shocked to be tackled and hugged by an enthusiastic Naruto before he could respond to them. The youthful Uzumaki struggled to keep herself in check, barely preventing herself from bouncing around. "You were so cool out there, Naruto-kun. I have seen a lot of styles through Pervy Sage and Dad, but I have never seen yours before. Now I can't wait to have a spar against you." "Yeah, but obviously I am still not very good at it though," Naruto said, giving her a clumsy pat in return. "Iruka-sensei is really strong though. He beat me without even trying and I thought I had a chance." "I am a Chunin, Naruto," Iruka declared. Iruka turned to face Naruto, who was now blushing slightly, and grinned. "I have a lot more experience than you and had more than to perfect my fighting style. You keep working hard and I am sure you will go far in the future. We will be working on filling up any gaps in not only your fighting, but anything else I spot today to help you." Naruto nodded and tipped his head to the side, receiving a chorus of cute comments from the girls in the class. "Did I say stop your repetitions, Naruto?" Naruto laughed nervously and scratched the back of her head, causing her body to stiffen. "Well, you see, I kind of got excited during your spar and wanted to see what he could do. So, I kind of forgot to do the rest. You're lucky it's time to move on to weapon practice or I would make you repeat your reps from the beginning," Iruka murmured. Naruto let out a sigh of relief, glad that she had escaped punishment. Okay, class, gather to the post so we can continue on to our weapon practice. Iruka began writing on a piece of paper, and everyone stood up to follow him. Naruto remained beside Naruto, who was accompanied by Hinata. As the students stood aside, Iruka said, "All right, everyone, come together so we can start. When I call your name, step up and I will hand you your weapon. You will get 10 chances to hit the targets presented for you. Today, you're graded on your form and ability to actually hit a target, rather than your accuracy. So, basically you just have to hit the post with the given weapons," Shinju mused. "This will be a slight problem since me and Jubi have absolutely no knowledge with how to throw those weapons. Do you have anything to do with my frequent flashbacks to memories?" Naruto inquired. Jubi said, "Not at all, young lord," in a bored tone. As he watched another student receive 5 shurikens, Naruto nodded and said, "Sorry to say, but you are on your own here on this one. I recommend watching everyone carefully so you can try to imitate their form. We will help you as best that we can either way." The boy carefully held the first shuriken without touching its edges, and the young Otsutsuki watched with interest. When he let go of the shuriken, it narrowly missed striking the human-shaped post's shoulder. As he threw more, he saw that only one shuriken had struck the mark. His form was way off. He heard Naruto reflect as he turned to face her. Confused, Naruto said, "What do you mean by that, Naruto-chan?" The Uzumaki girl said, "He was using the academy-styles poses," as she observed the boy miss the other kunai blows and only receive one. His feet were too close together and his shoulders were way too tight. He also moved his entire arm instead of just his hand or wrist. While attempting to comprehend, Naruto questioned, "Why would that matter though? Would that really affect your throw?" "Yes, actually," Naruto answered. She laughed nervously and scratched the back of her head before saying, "I don't really remember why it mattered though. I zone out sometimes when mom and dad explain." Cute, Naruto thought as he turned back to face the front, where Sakura, a girl, ascended next. The shy girl jumped when she heard the question, "Do you know Hinata?" Almost stuttering, she responded, "It is because of resistance and distance," a response her father had repeatedly repeated to her during training. The form will help with the strength used to fight air resistance, allowing it to slice through the pressure. It will also increase its speed to help keep it straight and fight against gravity. Though he wasn't sure what shape and posture he should adopt, Naruto nodded his head in comprehension. When he saw the Sakura girl from earlier score a 3 and give mark on the kunai and shuriken throw, respectively, he paid close attention. As he watched other students rise and receive different scores, he eventually heard his name called next. The young Otsutsuki approached slowly, feeling more anxious than before and unsure of what to do. "Tight but not too tight, then. That's what I could infer, anyway. Here, I am completely perplexed." When Iruka gave him a set of shurikens, he was startled out of his reverie. The scarred teacher thought, "Let's see just how skilled you are with weaponry compared to your fighting capabilities. Good luck, Naruto. Remember, the goal is to simply be able to hit the post with the weapons. Do your best." As he fiddled with the weapon, barely avoiding cutting himself, Naruto remarked, "The student that gained the highest score so far, held the shuriken like this." Naruto threw the throwing star with great force while locking onto the post once he felt he had the form and positioning right. Sadly, the weapon began to travel upward and missed the post entirely. In an attempt to determine what went wrong, Naruto gazed blankly at the post. Why did he miss when he was certain that he filled out the form correctly? Perhaps the placement was incorrect or something. As he moved his foot slightly and snatched up another shuriken, he thought. He threw it this time, but it missed the target again because it went too far to the left. As he grew irritated, Naruto let out a low growl and gave the post a fierce glare. When he failed to hit the target with the next 3 shurikens he threw, this only made him more enraged. "I was unable to hit a single mark. What went wrong? I am aware that I completed the form in a manner akin to the best one that came before me." Shinju calmly said, "Relax, young lord," hoping to calm his host before he let out an angry scream. "The next weapon is the kunai and they seem to be heavier than the previous weapon. This may help you out and give you better results." Naruto nodded while taking a deep breath to help relax his tense body and ease his nerves. The child with the white hair held the kunai, taking his time to adjust to the weight and feel of the new weapon. He then threw it while imitating the same child's stance. Before it nicked the post's shoulder, the kunai flew through the air. Shinju proudly urged, "Much better, young lord." Naruto took another one and did the same, nodding, "We just got to focus on accuracy." Naruto gave a small growl of annoyance as it nicked the target's side this time. Naruto could hear the other kids laughing at him because of all these different misses, which only made him more irritated and enraged Jubi. As he proceeded to record the findings, Iruka reflected, so, he doesn't seem to be nearly as strong when it comes to using weapons. His chakra started to leak out a little, causing the kunai's handle to slightly cave in and change from its tight grip. The young man tossed the last kunai at the post with great force. The kunai not only struck its target this time, but it also passed right through the wooden post. The tree behind the post stopped the kunai by wedging it deep into it, causing the area it was stuck in to slightly crack. Because of how strong Naruto appeared to be in that throw, the entire area fell silent. The sound of Naruto's low growl of rage at their earlier laughter made them cringe as well. Fortunately, none of them appeared to notice that Naruto's eyes were changing color. The left eye turned white, and the right eye turned completely black. Shinju yelled, "Calm yourself now, Jubi," at his fellow tenant, who was snarling menacingly and letting out a lot of red and black chakra that swirled all over his body. With his tail slamming into the ground, Jubi glared at the Shinju and screamed in hatred, "You expect me to allow these weak sack of flesh to mock us? They are far weaker than the young lord, and yet they believe they can laugh at because he doesn't some stupid piece of metal around like them. They need to be made aware of their place underneath the young lord and us." Shinju calmly responded, "Getting enraged by these young ones will do nothing but cause us problems, Jubi," as its branches started to gently sway. Before the energy started to rise and encircle Shinju more quickly, the vibrant chakra pool beneath the large tree started to bubble. This caused more of the liquid pools to flow more quickly as well. The Jubi growled softly, then smothered himself after realizing that the Shinju was ready to retaliate if necessary. It realized that although he was undoubtedly strong, Shinju was now far more powerful and could defeat him if necessary. Jubi finally said, "Fine, Shinju," as the pup lay on his paws and the strong chakra surrounding him died. "But if these children go too far, then I will not step down again." "Agreed," was Shinju's straightforward response. The great tree was aware that Jubi was only paying attention because he was currently much weaker than him. Shinju, however, was also aware that Jubi would grow stronger over time as well as with his tails. He simply sensed that Jubi would eventually be on par with him and that he would need to keep a leash on him until then. Jubi felt his warden's temper being calmed almost immediately after releasing some of its power with a more calming effect. As his growling subsided into a gentle sigh and his eyes reverted to their original hue, Naruto felt his body start to unwind. Slightly suspicious of the young man in front of him, Iruka asked, "Are you okay, Naruto?" Naruto had previously failed to hit the targets at all. With no points on the shurikens, the closest was able to occasionally nick the target with the kunai. He not only hit the target perfectly, but for someone his age, the strength behind it was astounding. "Yes, I am all right, sir," Naruto said, looking back at the target. Naruto looked at the hole in the target and wondered, "I wonder why I kept missing the target so much." His eyes shifted away from the dummy to the way his kunai was stuck in the tree. "Whoa, I'm much stronger than I appear," Iruka said. "Well, unfortunately you didn't do too well with your weapon test," after reviewing Naruto's results one last time. "While you did good getting a bullseye on your final throw, you didn't really score a point with any other one. You're going to need to catch up on that part." Angry that he performed so poorly, Naruto sighed as he made his way back to Naruto and Hinata. He was irritated that he wasn't close to the top score list, but he didn't know what it was. Ignoring the other students, he sat down beside the girls and mentally reviewed his movements, trying to figure out what he had done wrong. He was certain that he had accurately replicated those movements. He turned to see Naruto was the one who touched his shoulder, causing him to jump a little. To her new friend, she whispered, "It's okay, Naruto-kun. I'm sure with more practice, you will be able to better next time. You just need to work for it, something my mama used to always say. In fact, I can even help you if you want me to." In response to her generosity, Naruto couldn't help but smile a little. "I could use the help," he replied, nodding to the girl. Naruto found the remainder of the school day boring because it was primarily a history lesson. He talked endlessly about the village's founding and its more notorious shinobi. Only the name Hashirama Senju, who was referred to as the god of shinobi, seemed to pique his interest. He also couldn't help but be intrigued by the Senju name and the skills the clan appeared to have. Additionally, he sensed that Shinju was quite intrigued by Hashirama's apparent ability to grow entire forests in a matter of seconds. When Jubi learned how strong the man was, he became intrigued as well, and Naruto sensed his desire to battle him intensifying. However, Hashirama's title of God of Shinobi also caused Naruto to become irritated, and he was unable to understand why. Naruto and his tenants were both irritated and furious when the phrase, God of Shinobi, was removed. Naruto was startled out of his reverie by the sound of the day's last bell, which made him turn back to his teacher, who had just concluded dismissing the class. Naruto joyfully yelled, "Come on Naruto-kun," as she took his hand. "We have to go outside so we can meet up with Mom. She's not a fan of being made to wait, so we got to go." Naruto stood up and trailed the girl more accurately. He was pulled along without a chance to object. A giggling Hinata followed both of them. Exterior. As she stood there, Kushina observed the villagers assembling in the academy's courtyard. It didn't take long for her to finish speaking with her husband after discovering nothing in Naruto's room or possessions. As Kushina waved to a random villager who bowed to her, she thought, doesn't mean that he is safe yet. We had to purchase his living space because he didn't have much. Even though I feel horrible about it, I had to use seals to ensure that he wasn't liable, particularly if he is a sleeper agent, whether or not he is a child. Considering he is neither a Jinchuriki nor an Uzumaki, his chakra reserves are enormous. Kushina braced herself as her daughter, a blur, crashed into her because of years of refined experience. "Hello my beautiful daughter, I hope school was good." Naruto smiled at her mother and said, "Yeah, things were great," with joy. "I hit almost every target with weapon practice, though I messed up with the kunai." "Great job sweetie," Kushina said to her daughter. With Hinata standing anxiously beside him, she turned to Naruto, who was surveying the various families. "And don't worry, we will help you get better during practice. How was your first day, Naruto? And hello Hinata-chan." Hinata smiled and bowed to the lovely mother. Naruto glanced at Kushina and grinned slightly. "It was fine," he answered. "It would seem I have a lot to learn and I'm excited to do so. Though I seem to have no skills with weapons, but Naruto has offered to help in that problem." Kushina nodded and put that small detail away for later. Since the instructors are already closely monitoring Naruto while he is in the academy, she was already aware that she would receive a report from her husband on Naruto's current skill level. She concluded with a smile and a wink at Hinata, who grinned broadly. "Well, let's head out then kids, as we go shopping, and Hinata, you are joining us. I already sent away your guard since I'll be dropping you off myself when we are done. Today, you are having some fun." She liked spending time with Kushina because she felt the same warmth as both Naruto and her mother. Furthermore, even on training days, she always finds it enjoyable to spend time with the Uzumaki woman. Looking at them, Naruto tried to figure out why Hinata was so excited to be joining them and why she needed a guard. Ultimately, he was perplexed and turned to Kushina, shrugging his shoulders. "I suppose there's no need to hurry because I'll learn more as time goes on. And who knows, perhaps these flashbacks will help me understand it later." After that, the three of them set out for the village to complete the day's shopping for supplies Naruto would need to get by during his visit. Through the crystal ball on his desk, Minato observed the interactions between Naruto and his family at the Hokage office. This ball was a component of the village's security system. By entering my signature into the truck, it enables me to view a particular target or targets. It's ideal for spying on possible threats or spies in addition to locating criminals. Minato is currently watching Naruto scan his surroundings as he meets the statesman's wife and daughter. Although Minato was pleased that his angel was assisting a newcomer to the village and making a new friend, he was concerned about her relationship with the boy, who might or might not be a spy. Like his wife, he hoped the boy posed no threat so his daughter wouldn't be harmed by what he would have to do. Minato puts the crystal ball back in the desk and turns to face the door when she hears a knock. "Come in," he shouted. When the door opened, Iruka was standing there with a few papers. Grinning, he bowed to his leader. His greeting was, "I have the report about Naruto you asked for, Lord Fourth," and he gave the papers to Minato. "Thank you Iruka," Minato said, grinning as he quickly skimmed the documents. "Hey Iruka, what's your personal opinion of the boy? I'm curious how you see him after your interaction." The Chunin teacher gave it considerable thought before deciding on his response. Iruka's response, "That boy's questionably strong to be honest," caught Minato's attention. During our spar I noticed he was moving awkwardly, like he was trying to not go too hard. His strikes were strong, stronger than any genin I have spared against so far. Not to mention that he was able to lift me off the ground when I had him pinned. But that's not what makes me see him as so dangerous or interesting. It seems he has a knack for using his chakra like no one I have seen before. Minato gave Iruka a perplexed look. During our spy, the boy was able to manipulate his chakra and move it to his limbs as if he was doing it by instinct. It may be looking too much into it, but by how much it fluctuated, showed he had no clue he was even doing it. That boy's skill and adaptability will propel him far as he learns more. As he dismissed the teacher, Minato hummed and took the report, considering everything. We either have a ticking bomb or a gem in our hands, he thought. I suppose it will take time to determine whether or not something needs to be done. Through the crystal ball he had summoned, Minato observed Naruto carrying a few articles of clothing into a changing room. Fortunately, he didn't notice Naruto entering the room. Naruto has been experimenting with various outfits, but none of them have appealed to him thus far. All of them made him feel like he was being weighed down and were simply too restrictive for his taste. He looked it over before putting the shirt on, and the pair of clothes he had now felt better to him. This is a complete waste of time, Jubi snarled angrily. We could be using this time to get stronger and finding out more of who we were. But instead we are wasting our time with these girls, shopping for clothing. Shinju responded, Come now Jubi, it's not so bad, in an attempt to reassure its roommate. This could be beneficial since everyone else is wearing clothing of different kinds. It will help the young lord not only make new companions, but help us to blend in better. Something that is fundamental for these warriors it appears. Jubi responded, We are going to be standing our regardless. As his anger briefly flashed, but it soon subsided. We are most likely being watched by these warriors from the village anyway, so what's the point of holding back and risk ourselves being too weak to defend ourselves should the need arise? Jubi, Shinju is right, Naruto remarked after completing the AVK belt fastening around the waist of the new trousers. We can't risk this whole place seeing me as an enemy. I actually kind of like it here, even if mostly because Naruto and Hinata have been nothing but nice to me since I met them yesterday. I also still need to find out why I feel such a powerful pull towards Naruto too. I am sorry Jubi, but we are staying here and getting stronger by this village's rules. The wolf pup was annoyed but did not argue that this was a losing battle. Naruto examined himself after realizing that the conversation was over and had to say that he liked the way he looked. The shopkeeper referred to it as a battle kimono. It had a black outline and was entirely white. It came to an end at his waist, where his black belt secured it. He was dressed in tight-fitting white slacks that belied their tone for his age. The typical shinobi sandals, which felt light to him, were on his feet. His body was protected by mesh armor beneath the kimono and pants. From outside the dressing room, Naruto asked, Are you done yet, Naruto? Naruto gave a small laugh at her impatience, which he thought was adorable. Grinning at the girls, the young Otsutsuki pulled open the curtains. Curious, he asked, How do I look? He wasn't sure if it was acceptable, even though he might have liked it. Kushina examined Naruto's attire and was impressed. Even though it's not my style, he finds it to be effective. It makes him appear more regal, like the Hyuga but without the typical snobbish demeanor. You look good now itself, that outfit really suits you well. What do you think girls? The red-haired mother asked, glancing at the younger girls and laughing at their expressions. However, for a boy without the typical skill of an academy student, he is often much more for someone of his age which shows work. Naruto's face was flushed, and she tried not to look at Naruto. Hinata's whole face was flushed, and she continued to fidget nervously with her fingers. The poor Hyuga girl appeared to be about to faint. Hinata and her daughter were startled out of their reverie by a small shove. The fact that they were staring made them blush even more. Are you girls going to answer Naruto or are you two a bit too distracted? They asked themselves. Naruto stammered, looking from her mother to a bewildered Naruto. Yes, I mean no. She said, You Luka I'm great Naruto. I like the white of your clothes. Hinata stumbled, struggling to meet Naruto's gaze. I think you Loa look nice Otsutsuki, she said. Naruto grinned and nodded joyfully at them, perplexed as to why they were not meeting his gaze. Thank you, I also like these clothes as well. They are comfy and I have a lot of room to move around in. Kushina glanced at the cart with additional clothes on it and grinned broadly at his joy. Since you like that one so much, let's get you clothes that are similar to it then. They all nodded, and after about 30 minutes, they bought more clothes. Naruto keeps talking to 2 or 3 girls, or at most, listens to them. He showed me a section of the village where many children were playing and told me more about it. They eventually came to a clearing where these wooden poles were arranged side by side. A very attractive woman was eating a stick of dango while sitting on the middle stump. She was a tall woman with a trim, powerful build. She resembled Hinata in having pupilless, light brown eyes. Her hair was styled in a short, spiky, fanned ponytail, and it was black with a violet tint. Her body was made even more attractive by the mesh bodysuit she was wearing. She wore a tan overcoat with pockets on both sides and a purple inseam over that. She had on pale gray shin guards, a dark orange miniskirt, and a dark blue belt. She wore a wristwatch and a small pendant that resembled snake fangs in addition to the Konoha forehead protector. She hums joyfully after finishing the dongle and tosses it into a tree that has several other dango sticks embedded in it with remarkable accuracy. The woman kept her eyes closed the entire time, which impressed Shinju and Naruto. But when Naruto heard the Jubi call out to him, he almost jumped in fear. Jubi growled in, "Be careful around that woman, young lord. She has something about her that make my instincts go haywire. She's dangerous, young lord." Naruto yelled, "Big sis Anko." As she lunged towards the now smirking ladies. The violet-haired woman exploded into a cloud of smoke when she struck Anko. Naruto was taken aback by this since he didn't anticipate the women simply disappearing into smoke. Naruto fell over her own feet and landed over the stump, suggesting that she didn't. This caused Hinata to giggle softly and Kushina to laugh aloud. Naruto moaned and got to her feet, massaging the lump on her head. "Big sis, that was not funny," she exclaimed. Anko appeared beside Noriko, amused, and petted the young girl's head. "Come on kiddo, just a little joke. Consider it payback for the prank last week." With her arms crossed, Naruto retorted, "But you already got your payback when I paid for your dango the next day, which cost me 2 weeks of my allowance." Anko simply shrugged before Naruto gave her another hug, knocking the breath out of her. The woman with the violet hair grinned and gave him a hug in return. Is she related to her older sister? As Kushina gave the woman a subsequent embrace and Hinata simply bowed to greet her, Naruto pondered. Although they don't look alike, they don't even have the same vibe. In any case, she resembles Hinata more because of their similar hair colors and lack of eye pupils. After exchanging pleasantries, Uncle observed Naruto while examining him. He looks decent for his age, and just by looking into his eyes, I can tell he has something hidden. What exactly is it, then? So who's the third runt? Did little Red over here bag herself a boyfriend, or maybe the Hyuga brat? Both Naruto and Hinata's faces flushed red at what she said, and they were at a loss for words. Admittedly, they thought Naruto's now confused expression was cute, but they quickly turned their attention away. Kushina was trying her hardest to remain calm because she thought the girl's responses were hilarious and endearing. Naruto said, "Hello, my name is Naruto Otsutsuki, not Runt," not realizing what was so amusing, but his eyes widened as soon as he did. "And yes, I am both Naruto's and Hinata's boyfriend. It's nice to meet you, Miss Anko." He bowed slightly to the startled woman, completely ignoring Kushina, Naruto, and Hinata's look of surprise. She was not going to miss this juicy opportunity to tease her little sister and her friend, so she quickly got over her shock and whistled in gratitude. "Damn, didn't expect Naruto and Hinata to snag themselves the same man," Anko replied with a playful smile as she realized that he had completely misunderstood. "So, do you all kiss him one at a time, or is it a three-way smooch at once?" That was too much for poor Hinata, who returned to her old ways and fainted. Naruto moved to hide behind her shocked and amused mother because she thought her face would melt at any moment. Concerned, Naruto approached Hinata and examined her, wondering why she had fainted. "Hinata, are you okay? What caused you to abruptly fall asleep?" "Hinata." He felt his chakra start to latch onto the young girl when he was worriedly touched her forehead. He was shocked and quickly pulled away, not knowing why it had happened. "Don't worry, Naruto," Kushina said after checking on Hinata and learning that she was fine. "She only passed out from shock at what you said. But I'm wondering if you actually understand what a boyfriend is." Naruto answered, "Yes, I think I do. It's where your friend is a boy, right? And thus the word, boyfriend. Since we are all friends, I would be Hinata, Naruto, and your boyfriend." Kushina looked at Naruto incredulously before she and Uncle burst out laughing at the boy's miscommunication. She felt a little guilty about it, but she couldn't help Ida, it was just too funny. Anko simply believed that this child had given her a lot of material for blackmail. Anko quickly covered her mouth after Naruto said, "No, Naruto, that's not what boyfriend means." "No, boyfriend works exactly like that," Anko told the perplexed boy, grinning amusingly. Anko cried in agony when the girl she was holding decided to stop her and bit the older woman's hand hard enough to draw some blood. "You are definitely the boyfriend to Naruto and Hinata. You're just not the boyfriend to Kushina because she is too old for the term." "In fact, ow," she exclaimed. The woman with violet hair released her grip and gave the embarrassed Naruto a fierce glare in return. Naruto remarked, "We are definitely friends, Naruto," as she continued to stare at her sister figure. "A boyfriend means that we are dating, which we are not doing. We are just friends. Don't listen to Anko since she just likes to mess with people." Seeing that he had mispronounced the term, Naruto nodded in comprehension. He glanced at the girl with the blonde hair, but he was a little perplexed. "Then why is it called a boyfriend? Don't you think that is misleading, and what's dating?" They were all staring at him now, perplexed by his lack of knowledge about these topics. Children are much more aware of these kinds of things than other kids because the life of a shinobi is fast-paced and dangerous. Naruto, unsure of how to explain it to him at the moment, said, "We will explain later, Naruto." With a predator's gleam, Anko said, "Yeah, she will, but first she has to pay the due she is owed for biting my hand," as she turned to face Naruto, who had retreated out of fear of her sister. She threw a kunai at the blonde girl, who was too terrified to get out of the way. "Where do you think that you're running to, brat?" she exclaimed. When Naruto saw his friend in danger, his instincts told him to take action, and he became protective. Naruto hurried forward, the chakra pulsing in his legs, pushing him faster, not listening to the Jubi's command to stop. Before the blade could get to Naruto, he materialized in front of her. Sensing that Anko was behind his friend, he swiftly snatched the blade from the air and advanced with his new weapon, prepared to attack and defend her. Anko, who was standing behind Naruto with a kunai in her hand, was startled by Naruto's rapidly approaching new blade. She quickly deflected Naruto's blow by raising her weapon. However, she was unprepared for the strike's power, which soon cost her. Anko was pushed back and her arm was pushed upward the instant steel and steel met. Anko had no time to defend herself, so she prepared herself for the inevitable pain when Naruto's free fist rushed towards her face before she could recover. Fortunately, Kushina had recovered from her shock and acted swiftly, so Anko didn't need to worry. From her back, the mother unleashed her trademark chakra chains, which immediately encircled Naruto's arm and fist. As a result, Naruto felt that his chakra was incorrect, and his body instantly stopped. He deduced that the chains had somehow disrupted his chakra body, making him feel lethargic and immobile. Naruto's chakra seemed to be unresponsive to his words. He heard Naruto hold his chained hand to get his attention and say, "Naruto, please calm down. I am okay. Big sis does stuff like that to surprise me. She wasn't trying to hurt me, nor would she ever hurt me. I am okay, I promise." Kushina gradually pulled back her chains as she saw Naruto's expression of comprehension, which took some time because of his slow movements. She examined him carefully, looking for any other danger he might present. Since she usually uses it on weaker shinobi and regular civilians, she wasn't overly surprised when Naruto collapsed to one knee in exhaustion. She was taken aback when the young man got to his feet almost instantly. Not only would her chains drain her chakra, but they would also stop their relative flow, which would be difficult for most jonin to recover from. When the procedure should have been more than enough to knock him out, a new academy student who has no prior knowledge of chakra to this degree should not be getting up as if nothing had happened. Only a Jinchuriki, an Uzumaki, or someone with a lot of chakra should be able to bounce back this fast. Naruto interrupted Kushina's train of thought by saying, "I am sorry," to Anko. Naruto had fully recovered his sense of direction and was concentrating on the girls. He said the final line to the violet-haired woman, who merely waved his apology away with a smile. "It would seem I have completely misread the situation and thought that Naruto was in danger. I am sorry for attacking you, Ms. Anko," she said, unfazed by the incident. "It's all good, Runt, you were just looking for my brat over here. I can't say I can blame you or be mad since that means she has someone looking out for her when we aren't all around to keep an eye on her. But damn, I must say that you have one hell of a strong arm swing. I felt that swing impact throughout my entire arm." Unaware of the source of that unexpected surge of power, Naruto gazed down at his arm containing the kunai while lost in his own thoughts. Because it felt different from the Jubi and Shinju, he was unable to identify which it was. Compared to them, the power felt a lot more primal. Thank you for the compliment, I just wish I knew how I did that exactly. It's the first time I did anything like that, to be honest. Anko was taken aback, but she simply nodded without expressing it. Well, in the end I can't let a kid like you get the better of me so easily, she remarked, her smile growing more menacing. She licked her lips slowly, which made Naruto uneasy. So I am going to have to make sure that I get my pound of flesh from you when it suits me. Oh, I wonder what your blood will taste like, she said. As Naruto watched her reach for another kunai on her belt, he thought, I don't bleed according to Shinju. If they discover that, it will cause more problems. Fortunately, Kushina once more appeared alongside Anko and used her fist to slam the vicious woman's head, demonstrating divine intervention. Kushina glared, cut it out Anko, causing Anko to recoil like a child. You are threatening the poor boy for nothing major and you haven't even fully introduced yourself to him as of yet. Anko rubbed the sore spot on her head and said, Geez Kushina, I was just messing with the runt. Anko turned back to Naruto and coughed into her fist to gather her thoughts as the deadly mother's hardened glare made her perspire. Hey there runt, the Anko Materashi, the sexy and single kunoichi of Konoha. After the women's peculiar introduction, Naruto nodded before noticing something that perplexed him. In addition, he had flashbacks of this woman, some of which showed her at a much younger age than she is now, and her last name differs from that of her mother and sister. Didn't the majority of siblings share a last name, indicating kinship? If you don't mind me asking, but aren't you related to Naruto? He inquired. How come your last name is different from Naruto and Kushina? She is not related to us by blood, Naruto declared. Anko has been around me since I was young due to my mom basically taking her in. She's been like a sister to me ever since. Yeah, I went through some shit when I was younger, Anko said, crossing her arms and briefly displaying an angry expression before turning away. Kushina was there for me and took me in and has been the family I never had. Their family is among the very few people I trust with my life. Though he didn't fully comprehend it, Naruto nodded in agreement. The Jubi spoke to him before he could respond. He impatiently said, Naruto, I think it's time for you to go. With a mental nod, Naruto turned to face the group and said, you need to form into your landscape so that you can train. Plus, I have something to show you that will come in handy for all of us. As fun as this day has been, I think it's best that I start heading home, said Naruto. Hinata has yet to wake up, so she should probably get home, and I now have nothing amongst other stuff that I need to put away. After giving him a nod, Kushina created a shadow clone and went to retrieve Hinata. Naruto's eyes grew wide as he briefly concentrated on the clone. As she pointed to Anko and Naruto, the original Kushina turned to face them. Okay, you two, let's head back to the house, that way I can get started on making dinner. Naruto, you are more than welcome to join us. It's alright, Naruto said, snatching up a few of the bags. I would like to put everything away and get some rest. Kushina nodded as she and Naruto bid the boy farewell with a brief embrace. As they all departed, leaving Naruto alone, Anko simply grinned. Finally, exclaimed Jubi, I thought those humans would never leave. Now you can get back home so we can get everything back on track. Naruto nodded as he traveled the 15 minutes or so back to his house. He put his head on his bed and closed his eyes after taking the time to clear his mind. Mindscape. He visualized Naruto in the location of the Shinju. As he passed through the liquid chakra and encountered the enormous tree, the lights in the area continued to flow peacefully as before. He was shocked to see that the Shinju was wider and taller than when he had last seen it, and that it appeared to have some new, larger branches. Shinju said, Hello young lord, to its container. Welcome back to your mind. Naruto said, Hello to you too Shinju, as he surveyed the surroundings. Where is Jubi? Jubi's voice said, Right over here young lord, from behind Naruto. The young man noticed that the wolf pup had slightly grown when he turned around. What was most unexpected was not that the puppy had already gained a few inches in height, but rather that it had a new feature. Its eyes, which had previously been black and white, were now completely white and pupil-free, resembling Hinata's. The Byakugan belonged to the Jubi. Naruto exclaimed, Your eyes are like Hinata's. With a start. How did that happen? Jubi said, It would seem that you already had that power inside of you, and expressed satisfaction at the discovery. When your chakra connected itself to that Hinata girl, it absorbed some of her chakra and traits and passed it towards myself. This led to our chakra changing to match the unique ability of hers and thus my change in appearance with my eyes. The dojutsu was added to me while the chakra taken was added to Shinju. And it appears the damn tree was right, as there is more to that girl than meets the eye, as her chakra mutated when in contact with ours, giving us a bigger boost in power than normal. It's glorious. As Naruto put it, that's all well and good, but how do I use it then? You said I possess it too now, so how do I use it? From what we found, you can turn it on off by simply transferring chakra to and from your eyes, said Shinju. And the best part, thanks to your unique makeup the most, is that your pupils will be slightly faded now instead of no longer being there. Naruto inquired, so what exactly does this mean for us? I know from the basic memories that I can use it to see chakra, but I could already do that naturally when I focus on it. So what else do these eyes do for us? Jubi said, it would seem the Byakugan will give you a much sharper natural eyesight, while reactivating the bloodline while sitting on his hind legs. Not only that, but it seems to allow us to see something called chakra points instead of just chakra flow, and a form of X-ray vision which could be of use. It also seems to allow us to look in a more 360 degrees vision, so we can now even see behind us without having to turn around. That helps when just sensing out chakra didn't work for us. As for any fighting applications, I really don't know for sure how that will help us. We will have to experiment and maybe learn something that could complement its advantages. Shinju said, Naruto, now attracting the white-haired boy's attention, so would like to suggest that you hide the fact that you now possess the Byakugan. Naruto was perplexed by this since he failed to see a good reason to keep his new talent a secret. According to what she told him, Hinata has it and is flaunting it alongside her other family members. The question was left unanswered. Shinju responded, Naruto, we have no idea what else these new eyes of yours can do. I recommend that until we have more information of this power, we should keep it to ourselves. Plus, we have no idea how the people of this village will react to someone else beside that family having those eyes. I doubt it's pure coincidence that only young Hinata's family has the Byakugan. We have no idea what they will do to someone not related to them and has their Kakei Genkei. So, I think it's safer to secretly look into it and learn more that way. While I hate the idea, said Jubi irritably, the Shinju is right here, so for now, we will train and learn more about in the mindscape at night. This way we can practice away from prying eyes and not be set back too much. We have a lot of abilities to learn, young lord, and I would like we not waste time to master them. Naruto glanced between his two tenants and nodded. So if that is the case, where will we begin? Time skip. Naruto acquired the Byakugan a few years ago, and he has diligently trained to become proficient with it. He had kept a close eye on Hinata while she practiced, making sure Shinju and Jubi could both commit the motions to memory. He is confident that he has a solid grasp of the skill, even though he is far from being able to claim that he has mastered it. He had no trouble using the eyes themselves and turning them on and off. After discovering that he could use the elements with his chakra, he has also become much more adept at handling and using it. He discovered this after witnessing Sasuke Uchiha, one of his classmates, use his chakra to produce a fireball over a sizable lake. Naruto felt a familiarity with the chakra's formation, which caused his chakra to explode. As a result, Naruto attempted and ultimately succeeded in reproducing the technique on his own. Over the course of his practice, he was able to unleash a powerful ball of chakra that was twice his size. When Naruto used the same amount of chakra as Sasuke, he was shocked to see that it was larger than he had anticipated. Jubi was even more excited about their power as a result of this. Shinju made it clearer that in order to avoid accidentally hurting people, they needed to exercise more control over their power. In relation to him, Jubi and Shinju have also grown more powerful. During his third year in Konoha, Jubi developed a second tail, which caused the pup to triple in size. Shinju was further nourished by the rising lake of chakra surrounding them. Both were silent about the recent changes. Since his arrival, Naruto's reputation in the village has significantly improved because most people in the village like him. Some women felt that his consistently helpful and cute demeanor helped with that. When he grew close to the Hokage and his family to the extent that Kushina and Minato viewed him as their own child and he was rarely seen without Naruto, their apprehension subsided. However, there were hiccups in their relationship, such as when, with Shinju's assistance, he and Naruto discovered the seals that were used to spy on him throughout his apartment. The adults felt awful as a result of Naruto's chewing motion and Naruto's hurtful expression. Even knowing why they did it didn't make Naruto any less depressed or Naruto any less furious. Before the two arrived, Naruto made a special effort to stay away from them for roughly a week. That week, AMF apologized to him 7 times. A daily apology from them. Naruto eventually pardoned them, though, since they had promised to assist him with his shuriken aim because he was still having difficulty throwing weapons. He even had a good relationship with Anko, although for some reason Jubi was still suspicious of her. In any case, he discovered that Minato could call forth toads, but she could call forth snakes of all kinds to help in combat. Caused him to question whether he was aligned with any animals. He also noticed that Hinata and Naruto had been acting strangely around him. Even though Naruto was always animated and talkative, occasionally he would become quiet, turn away from him, or stammer while flushed. He frequently assumed she was ill or something, but when he checked, she wasn't. Hinata experienced the same thing, fainting around him multiple times. He ended up carrying the heiress home to the Hyuga clan, which resulted in an uncomfortable encounter. Naruto was supposed to take the test to become a genin today, but he was running late. He discovered that sleep wasn't really necessary, but it was a great way to replenish his chakra more quickly, as something he hardly ever needed to do, and it also made it easier for him to enter his mindscape and train there. Using every new technique he has learned and imitated over the years, he sparred against Jubi last night. The Jubi's increased strength and durability made the sparring session difficult. He was a challenging opponent because of his strength, speed, and agility. However, Naruto was also difficult to hit because of his new Byakugan. He eventually used the Fireball Jutsu and Shadow Clones to land a hit. The Fire Jutsu did not leave a single scratch or singe mark on the beast's body because of the Jubi's enhanced durability. The Jubi staggered back a little as a result of the attack's force, which made Naruto feel a little proud. Returning to the present, Naruto moved at a remarkable rate for an academy student as he dashed from building to building. Even though he was aware that he could travel more quickly, he preferred the slow pace. Shinju told Naruto, "You really should have left earlier, young lord," after he arbitrarily leapt 2 rooftops. "We wouldn't be in such a rush if you did." "Well, that training session where we locked away most of my chakra left me faint, absolutely exhausted and needing more time to rest," said Naruto. He swirled and avoided the Fey villagers who were out and about this early in the morning, saying, "Besides, at least we could travel faster without raising too much suspicion now." Jubi remarked, "Besides, he was at least being productive," and Naruto noted the laughter in his voice. "That Byakugan was a huge boon to our arsenal, as the boost it gave us is incredible. The power boost may only be a small percentage, but it still put you to about the same level as those Chunin shinobi on your own. Using either me or Shinju would definitely put you on par with one of the more powerful Jonins, or maybe even those Anbu we heard about. Honestly, we should work on gaining that other eye power that is in this village, the Sharingan, if I remember the name right. Think of the power boost we would gain from it along with the techniques it could open up for us." Naruto declared, "I am not going to hunting for that Jubi," as he arrived and went through the academy's doors. Both constructs agreed that, if we gain it, then we will handle it at the time. Naruto entered his classroom and immediately received glares from most of the males in the room, but he chose to ignore them while sitting in his seat near the back. As the Jubi snarled, Shinju remarked, "I will never understand these humans' animosity. Simply because you get along with the girls of the class doesn't mean they can try and get territorial. At least all they will do is glare, after you beat that Inuzuka boy so bad last year." A significant number of the girls in the class adore Naruto because of his attractive features and adorable lack of knowledge. However, most of the boys have different feelings about him, particularly Kiba Inuzuka, the heir to the Inuzuka clan, who harbored the strongest animosity toward him. Although polygamy is legal in their society as long as both parties agree, it is not widely practiced, which is why he detested Naruto so much for being so close to the girls he wanted to be his. Speaking of the Inuzuka heir, he recently entered the room with his devoted pet dog, Nin Akamaru, a tiny brown and white puppy that loved to perch on its owner's head. The boy walked into the room with a smug smile on his face. Before his smile turned to a furious frown, he glanced around the room and saw that Naruto was bored and hardly gave him a glance, as if he wasn't worth his time. He gritted his teeth and thought, "How dare that outsider runt look at me like I don't even matter." Since he developed the mindset that being the strongest member of the academy was his right as a alpha male, Kiba has always been a bit of a brazen guy with an inflated personality. This idea was somewhat supported when he was one of the few genin aspirants who, aside from Naruto, could compete against Sasuke Uchiha in a taijutsu match. Yes, since he hadn't yet defeated either of them, he was officially in third place, but that's third place to a daughter of the fourth Hokage and an heir to the Uchiha. Damn it, he was among the best. Then, out of nowhere, this white-haired man who has a lot of chakra but no real basic skills appears and, without doing anything, immediately becomes close to Naruto and Hinata. His two childhood friends and future partners no longer communicate with him due to the bastard's persistent interference. As he sat in his middle seat, he thought to himself, "Today will be the day that I put you in your place and get you away from my girls, you runt." Having grown accustomed to Kiba's jealous outbursts, Akamaru just lay in his partner's lap. Naruto ignored Kiba and noticed that Sasuke Uchiha, the youngest of the Uchiha clan head's children, entered the room next. Similar to the Hyuga clan, Naruto experienced a particularly strong pull from the Uchiha family, but it was stronger for Sasuke than it was for Hinata, and it only grew stronger over time. Ignoring the other students in the classroom, Sasuke yawned with a little frown on his face. "My father was too busy to bother me again, so only my mother and Itachi took me to my genin exam today. Even though I finished first in my class this year, it was insufficient." He felt like he was being watched as he sat by the window and glanced around before meeting Naruto's gaze. Although he does not distrust him, Sasuke does not despise the white-haired boy. For some reason, he simply triggered the alarm bells in his mind. According to what some people have been saying about him, the man was also extremely talented, nearly as good as his brother, at least in terms of picking up skills rather quickly. He was near the bottom of the class and had very few skills when he first arrived at the academy, but he quickly rose to become the third strongest student in the class. Sasuke thought, and he isn't higher because he's weak or anything. His use of weapons is still only in the middle of the class out of all the courses. Furthermore, he doesn't appear to have a basic understanding of most subjects, including science, math, history, and more. He can learn and apply techniques with relative ease, and his practical use of chakra is amazing. And from what Naruto has told me and what I have seen thus far, he has a huge chakra pool. In fact, only Naruto and Aunt Kushina can match it. Another oddity is that he has a lot of potential in taijutsu because he was unable to defeat Kiba, who is among the best in the class at hand-to-hand combat. I'll just have to keep a careful watch on him because I dislike having unknown circumstances around me or people I care about. Shikamaru Nara and Choji Akamichi, who were eating a bag of potato chips and yawning, respectively, were the next two individuals to enter and grab Naruto's attention from Sasuke. Neither of them looked at anyone in the class, they just sat down. Shinju turned away from the pair and remarked, "Both those two need to work on their motivation. Both have potential to be outstanding warriors, but they are both just too lazy to get themselves to the top." When Jubi said, "Yeah, but that is their problem, not ours," she was annoyed. "Their weakness will only slow us down and we have just started to finally pick up some momentum to gaining our strength. Don't bother with them." Naruto was about to respond when he heard a loud noise. As the loud yelling of insults approached, the Otsutsuki recognized the familiar screeching voices at once. As Ju snarled in disgust and rage, Naruto let out a small sigh. You could hear the Shinju laughing softly if you listened past that. Naruto sighed and thought, and here come two of my biggest headaches of the classroom, right behind Kiba. A second later, two girls yelled at each other and butted heads as they rushed into the room simultaneously. The first girl wore a purple-cut ensemble consisting of an apron and a high-colored blouse. White bandages were wrapped around her legs and abdomen. She wore tiny hoop earrings as well. She had a long bang on the right side of her face and long, pale blonde hair tied in a ponytail. Her light blue eyes and pale complexion also made Naruto think of a clear midday sky. She had traditional shinobi-style sandals on her feet. In addition, she has a kunai pouch on her right thigh and white arm warmers. The other girl, who was about the same height as the first, had green eyes and fairer skin. She was dressed in a red kipao dress with short sleeves, side slits, a zipper, and white circular patterns. A shuriken holster encircles her right thigh along her lower body, and she is wearing tight dark green bike shorts. Continue. She wore ankle-length blue sandals on her feet. Ino Yamanaka and Sakura Haruno, the Yamanaka heiress and a member of a civilian family, respectively, were the two girls. As they fought over who would get to the classroom first, the two girls kept hurling insults at one another. As he heard Jubi growling at the two girls he thought were pitiful, Naruto let out a sigh. Now, instead of the multi-tailed wolf's disgust, Naruto and Shinju felt disappointment at squandering their potential. Naruto could see that if both girls truly chose to put in a lot of training, they could be fairly strong in their own right. Although not particularly strong, Ino, an heiress to the Yamanaka clan, possessed a special set of abilities that allowed her to take on an enemy's body or even communicate with an ally via telepathy. She also had the potential to have a very toned body. Even though Sakura doesn't come from a shinobi family, the same could be said for her. Although her chakra reserves were limited, her control was almost flawless. She is also incredibly intelligent, having committed nearly flawless texts to memory. The issue is that neither girl received any training, or if they did, it was only to the bare minimum. Not to mention that Sakura, Ino, and, to be fair, the majority of the girls in the class had an unhealthy obsession with Sasuke. To be honest, Sasuke was bothered by the girls other than Ino and Sakura if they weren't bothering him. Naruto moaned as the two girls persisted in screaming at one another in an attempt to determine who was superior and should be seated next to the boy of their dreams. To be honest, because the two girls were so noisy and he had to deal with them for the majority of the year, the white-haired boy felt sorry for the Uchiha male. Their shouting gave him a terrible headache, and he himself had a very keen sense of hearing. Shino Aburame, with whom he had no animosity at all, was the next to walk. He wore a gray jacket with a high collar that was always buttoned up, covering most of his upper body. He always wore sunglasses and had brown hair that was spiky. His weapon pouch rested on his right leg, and he was dressed in tight brown pants. He had blue, ankle-length shinobi-style sandals on his feet. The Aburame clan, which specializes in insects of all kinds, had him as an heir. Quiet and intelligent, Shino was a recluse by nature. Although it wasn't totally his fault, the majority of people tended to stay away from the boy because his clan's insects live inside its members' bodies. People find that unsettling, and they have no idea how to deal with such individuals. Naruto occasionally hears the insects inside Shino moving and crawling around. The Shinju remarked, "The boy does have a lot of hidden strengths. It would be interesting to have him as an allied to those insects having the unique ability to drain the chakra of the enemy. Plus he's highly intelligent, which would make for a great strategic partner." "Yeah, but then again he won't do well in a frontal assault," Jubi responded. "That means we would have to watch over him against a particularly skilled head-to-head fight or even a fire-style jutsu." Whispering, "Everyone has weaknesses," Naruto put his chin in his palm. He just disregarded Jubi's claim that they have no weakness. They are aware that he is far from unbeatable because they lack the strength necessary to defeat the village's superior shinobi. Naruto smiled slightly as he recognized the person entering through the door and felt the strong pull return. Someone kicked the door open with great force, and it slammed open. "Yeah, it's graduation day," exclaimed Naruto, her whiskered face beaming broadly. Her mother gave her 2 bangs that framed her heart-shaped face, and her silky red hair has grown to her shoulder blades. She wore a short-sleeved dark green shirt underneath an orange, black, and red jacket. She had on black-lined orange tights. She demonstrated her ambidexterity by strapping a weapon pouch to each leg. A katana with a tiny red chain hanging from the handle was strapped to her back. She was wearing her typical blue shinobi-style sandals. Hinata said softly, "Naruko-chan, calm down please," from behind the Uzumaki girl. "Yeah, you don't want to go crazy." Over time, the young Hinata Hyuga has also adopted a new strategy. She is a little more outgoing now because of Naruto and Naruko. She was still quite shy, but not nearly as much as she had been, and her new look reflected her increased self-confidence. With a red clip on the theft side, her gorgeous violet hair had grown to shoulder length, revealing more of her face. She was wearing a protective fishnet shirt underneath her beige jacket, which stopped just short of covering her well-proportioned chest. The jacket featured a hood, white fluff on the bottom, and the Hyuga clan emblem on both sleeves. She had a kunai pouch on her right leg and was wearing black tights that accentuated her powerful legs. Her feet were strapped with the typical blue shinobi-style sandals. "Sorry Hina-chan," Naruko said, rubbing the back of her head in shame. "I am just so excited to finally be graduating. I mean, yeah, we have to pass the test, but it's not like that will be a problem." Hinata answered, I don't know Naru-chan. I just think it's best not to get carried away." Naruko responded, "You worry way too much Naru-chan," while placing her arm around her nest friend's shoulders. "We kick too much ass to not pass. With all of our training, Us and Naruto-kun are sure to pass and become genin. Naruto laughed at the girls. As their other best friend smiled at them, both girls looked up and grinned brightly at him. So glad that you have that much faith in me, Naruto. Good morning, Naruto, Hinata. You're both lively this early in the morning. With a radiant smile, the young heir of the Uzumaki family said, Naruto-kun. Good morning, to the boy with silver hair. This year, she discovered that she had a serious crush on her friend, and she had to suppress the urge to blush when she saw her smile. Since she had gotten to know Naruto's personality, she was genuinely not shocked to discover that she had developed a serious crush on him. She was genuinely interested in him because he was such a nice guy. He was clearly intelligent because of how quickly he picked up new information, particularly when it came to training. He struggled with most weapons, but his hands-on application of chakra techniques was the best in the class. He has only demonstrated proficiency with a staff as a weapon. She simply thought he was cute because of it. We won't even discuss how he looks. His eyes were both feral and regal at the same time. She knew he didn't really take care of his long silver hair because it occasionally appeared to be sparkling in the sunlight. His stunning blue eyes made her think of all the lakes that surround Konoha. She lost count of how many times she'd lost herself gazing into his eyes. After blushing for a moment because she thought the ground was interesting, Hinata plucked up the courage to greet him back. Good morning, Naruto-kun. How are you this morning? The girls blushed brightly when Naruto gave them a warm smile. I am doing quite well, Hinata. I'm happy to finally get this school over with at long last and move on. You two ready to become ninja? Naruto gave him an enthusiastic smile and nod, but Hinata gave him a bashful one. Sincerely, he was concerned that Hinata's shy personality might be a barrier for her. In comparison to earlier times, she has undoubtedly emerged from her shell and demonstrated her strength as a fighter in recent years. However, because she is shy and pacifist, she hesitates in her matches and unwittingly hinders herself. Jubi said, stop worrying about her, because he still dislikes Hinata's submissive manner. She dies, then she dies. It will be because of her own weakness should that happens. Not at all agreeing with the Jubi, Naruto mentally shook his head at the multi-tailed wolf. I like Hinata, Naruto told Jubi. He concluded with such finality that Jubi nodded and took a step back. I will not simply abandon my friend because you think they are weak. Now stop it. Being aware that disparaging the Hyuga heiress will not be accepted by his lord. The two girls sat down beside Naruto, with Hinata beside her and Naruto to his left. Iruka was the next person to enter, and aside from being a little more weary of his students' antics, he had not changed at all. Sasuke raised his hand in response to the statement, good morning everyone. Please take your seats so we can all get started. Yes, Sasuke. Satsuki is going to be a bit late due to having to pick up someone from a compound, replied Sasuke. She was asked to do so by Lord Fourth. Iruka thanked Sasuke for the information and nodded. We will give them another 15 minutes before we get started then. If they arrive before then that's great. Besides, I'm still waiting for my assistant anyway. Shikamaru chose to remain silent and put his head down to sleep, but everyone else continued their excited chatter without needing to be reminded twice. Satsuki Uchiha, who was both a close friend of Naruto and Hinata and someone who genuinely perplexed him, was on Naruto's mind. She was undoubtedly one of the class's strongest females. The three strongest students in the class were thought to be Naruto, Hinata, and Satsuki. The three strongest males were Kiba, Sasuke, and Naruto. In any case, Satsuki was a very independent girl who didn't back down when she had something to say. She frequently challenged him to spar because she didn't like how much better Naruto was than her. He hadn't lost to her unless it had involved weapons, but she had undoubtedly become stronger during their spars. During the second year, she started to blush around him and occasionally felt uneasy around him. She stutters like Hinata 1 second, then confidently challenges him the next. His two inners had to concur that she was an odd girl. 10 minutes or so later, the door opened and two individuals of beautiful girls in their own right entered. The first girl had light brown eyes and long brown hair. Her brown hair was braided on the left side and straight on the right. She wore a yellow hair clip with two circular patterns on it. She wore red mesh armor over a pink battle kimono secured with a pink sash. Her legs were wrapped in medical tape, and she was dressed in violet tight shorts. She wore orange sandals in the shinobi style. She had a weapons pouch on her left leg and 3 small scrolls on the back of her waist. The second girl was a young, attractive woman with long, raven black hair pulled back into a ponytail. She was wearing a loose-fitting red and white shirt over a short-sleeved blue jacket. She accessorized with blue shinobi-style sandals and dark blue tights. Like Naruto, she had a cute heart-shaped face and nice tan skin. Despite being coal-black, her eyes had a playful quality. A sheathed shakudo rested on her back, while a weapons pouch was fastened to her left leg. These two girls were Satsuki Uchiha and Yakumo Kurama. Yakumo and Satsuki became best friends after Satsuki's mother visited Yakumo's mother's compound. While Satsuki was in competition with the Uzumaki girl, the two girls were also best friends with Hinata and Naruto. Because Yakumo struggled to control her Kekai Genkai, the Kurama heir developed an inner being. Kushina's seals and the two mothers' training swiftly fixed this. As previously stated, the two were also friends with Naruto. Despite Yakumo's shy demeanor around him, he didn't want to get too close to her. When he was around, she was usually quiet, but when the girls were around, she became animated. He was perplexed as to why, but he concluded that it was one of those things he didn't comprehend. It would seem that the Yakumo girl has made a huge recovery, Shinju stated. That's good, as her prowess with genjutsu will make her a very deadly warrior in the future. Jubi continued, it would seem the runt has finally taken control of life. She has come a long way from that shut-in that you met 2 years ago. Though her chakra amount is still pitiful, she wouldn't last too long in a fight, despite her impressive control over it. Though I will say that Satsuki would make an interesting partner. Shinju responded with what sounded like a sigh, you are basing it off her being a Uchiha and her possibly being able to awaken her Sharingan. Though she is a well-rounded fighter, much like Sasuke is. Iruka said, all right, everyone take a seat. Satsuki, you and Miss Yakuman may go have a seat by your brother. We will be taking the written exams before settling into the next part. Iruka started giving the students their tests, and everyone followed instructions. When he was done distributing them, the door opened and Anko Mitarashi entered, contentedly munching on a stick of dango. I see you started the genin exams without me, Iruka, she grinned. Sorry I was late, had a long interrogation session last night with our little friend. When Mitsuki was found to be a traitor approximately a year ago, Anko was asked to serve as Iruka's assistant. In the Hokage's office, he had been formulating a scheme to obtain the sacred scroll of sealing. He was immediately arrested, and things got worse for him when it was found that he had a master outside the village, but no one could figure out who. The only reason he hadn't been put to death was to obtain that information. He was now trapped with Anko's senses, Orochimaru, in the IT chambers. Naruto and his innermost feelings were agitated when he met the man through Naruto and Anko. In addition to being extremely intelligent, he was undoubtedly a very powerful man. Together with 2 other members of the Hokage's team when he first became a ninja, the Pale Man had a close relationship with the Hokage's family. Iruka nodded as the snake mistress left, saying, well, since they are just taking the writing portion, Anko continued as she took out another stick of danger after finishing the first. I'll just head outside to set up for the next portion. Start your test right now. As the pupils turned over their papers, Iruka spoke. Sakura, Shikimaru, Satsuki, Shino, and Sasuke were among the first to finish their tests, and Naruto took about 40 minutes to complete his own. It took about an hour for everyone to finish their tests, with Sun finishing much faster than the time allotted. While Shinju was helpful in answering questions when he could, it did not mean that he knew all the answers. Naruto was pleased to see Naruto because he had trouble with paperwork of any kind, and Hinata had also finished slightly ahead of him. As he gathered the tests, Iruka said, all right, everyone. Head out to the courtyard for the next part of the test. Everyone hurried out without needing to be reminded twice. In the courtyard, the students discovered a number of human-shaped targets spread out across the field, each in a different direction and at a different distance, some of which, if you looked closely, were concealed among the branches of some of the trees. Anko was eating her stick of danger with 2 cases of kunais and shurikens while sitting on a table near a red circle on the ground. Naruto became excited and hurried over to give Anko a firm embrace, which Anko reciprocated. Good to see that you are all here, now get back to your group, Naruto, said Orochimaru's apprentice, grinning as she released her younger sister. Okay, Runt, it's time for the second portion of your exam, the throwing weapons portion, Anko said, pushing the blonde girl toward the other students. As you are all aware by now, even though they are basic equipment, throwing weapons like kunais and shurikens are an important part of a ninja's arsenal. As you can see, There are targets positioned at different distances and in different locations, and your ass will be standing in the center of that circle. You will throw 10 different shurikens and kunais in the direction of the targets, some of which are hidden throughout the field and will give you extra points if you hit them. Naturally, the maximum number of points you can obtain by normal means is 150. Masamune, your ass is up first. The test had suddenly started. Many students have gone with just 2 achieving over 100 in the 45-minute period. Both Shino and Choji were able to receive 105. Choji, who didn't anticipate receiving a score higher than a 90, was undoubtedly pleased by this and cheered joyfully. Shino simply remained silent as usual. Sakura was the next to ascend, and she did appear to be quite confident. She grabbed her weapons and fired them. She only pursued the non-hidden targets in order to be safe. She achieved a respectable score of 100 by the end of her 7-minute time. Okay, not bad out there, Pinky, Enko remarked while recording the outcomes. That puts you in second place after the Hyona brat. Alright, Hyuga, get in there. As she approached her home, Hinata inhaled deeply and calmly. Naruto's encouragement and Naruto's consoling words gave her a boost of confidence. Yakumo, Sasuke, and Satsuki were all telling her that she understood. With her weapons in hand, Hinata made her move and concentrated. Hinata achieved the current highest score of 115 in just 6 minutes. By hitting the corner of a hidden target in the trees and getting 3 bullseye, she even managed to earn a little extra. As she recorded the outcomes, Enko remarked, "Okay, nice work and excellent form out there. You currently have the best score of the girls. Kibbles, get in there." Akamaru let out a loud bark, and Kiba clenched his teeth at the name. He took his turn, keeping his annoyance to himself, and, like Sakura, chose to remain safe while pursuing the farther off targets. He achieved a score of 110 in 6 minutes. This made him the most popular guy right now, which gave him a cocky grin that he directed at Naruto, who just shook his head as the girls let out a frustrated sigh. Even Jubi snarled at Kiba's obvious disdain for his betters, as he so beautifully described them. Even so, Shinju and Naruto were able to soothe him. That was fortunate because Naruto's chakra began to be slightly affected by his anger. Yakumo, who was just as anxious as Hinata, was the next to ascend. As she approached her home, she blushed deeply and looked around before stopping when someone put a hand on her shoulder. When she turned, Satsuki's hand was there, and he grinned confidently at her. She told her friend, "Yakumo, you have worked hard for this opportunity. You can do this. Just go out there and give it your all." The pale girl's nerves were calmed by this, and she grinned and nodded appreciatively. She received encouragement from the other members of their group, who told her that she would succeed. Even Sasuke encouraged her to go out there and demonstrate her abilities despite his monotone voice. The heiress of Kurama straightened up and assumed her stance. Her eyes were briefly closed before opening with a ferocious fire in her eyes. Her weapons sliced through the air as she allowed her body to operate automatically. She received a total score of 125 in 4 minutes and 57 seconds. The class was amazed by this since it was the fastest time and the highest score for both genders at the time. On one of the hidden targets, she even received a bullseye. The audience applauded, and Satsuki gave Naruto and her best friend hugs. "Well, that was impressive," Shinju remarked. "She has grown well from that frail girl that we met," like Jubi had said earlier. The highest score of the class, she is basically standing at the top right now. Satsuki said, "See, I knew that you could do it. As a compliment, you did amazing out there. Now I am going to do my best. Okay, my turn to not get left behind." Yakumo found the floor intriguing and blushed brightly from all of her friends' compliments. She did, however, glance briefly at Naruto before averting her eyes when their eyes locked. Enko coughed loudly to get her friends' attention before she could thank them. "Yeah, great job, happy for you," Enko remarked cynically. "But I would appreciate it if you could move your asses so we can continue." Enko laughed at them, causing everyone to flee the field. "Lazy ass Nara, you are up next. Now hurry up before I light a fire on your ass." Shikamaru snarled, "What a total drag," as he approached slowly. He had his hands in his pockets. He picked up his weapons and tossed them idly at the nearest targets, not bothering to aim for the farther ones because he knew it would take too much work. With a basic score of 95, his time was a predictable 8 minutes and 37 seconds. As the indolent academy student returned to the crowd, another drop of sweat fell. GR just yawned and sat back in the ground. Enko shook her head and continued. Pretty boy, you're up. Show us what you got, runt. Naruto nodded and moved toward the circle, grinning slightly at his friend's encouraging remarks and applause. However, when Naruto gave Kiba a brief embrace, he heard a growl. As Hinata gently grasped his right arm, the noise only increased. Since they were aware that Naruto typically struggled with this section, his other friends also offered him encouragement. For a brief moment, Naruto and Sasuke looked at each other and nodded silently. After grabbing 10 kunais, Naruto stood in the middle of the circle and surveyed his surroundings. Kushina and Minato had taught him how to hold them with sufficient skill. He took a close look around before moving. He threw 3 of them in a row. When the weapons struck their targets, 2 at a middle distance and 1 at close range, they produced loud slapping noises. Naruto threw 3 more kunais because he didn't want to lose momentum. These targets were farther away, but they were still hit. He tossed the final 4 kunais after spinning them in his hands. For the first time, he hit 2 bullseyes on the nearest targets. Unfortunately, the final one barely hit the bottom of the middle target, but one of them hit close to the bullseye of the farthest target. You're doing great, young lord, Shinju urged. Naruto nodded and reached for his shuriken, saying, don't lose your momentum. You're doing better than your last attempt already. He held his breath, not that it mattered much to him, and concentrated on the individual targets as he considered whether or not to pursue the hidden targets. He fired 2 shurikens at the middle target, striking it close to its center as he returned to the unhidden targets. Before the first pair reached the farthest target, he released 2 more that twisted and curved in the air. However, none of them were a target. Naruto chose to take a chance after glancing at the tree. He slashed through the air with 2 more shurikens. Naruto fired the final 2 at the farthest target after getting lost in the foliage, hitting the bullseye both times. After finishing, Enko went to inspect the shurikens that had been hurled at the concealed target. In a moment, she came back and took notes. Naruto was anxious as he awaited his results. Not bad, brat, Enko remarked. Within a time frame of 5 minutes 38 seconds, accumulating a score of 120 points. You hit the hidden targets 2 times through barely. It really helped your score, since those are major points. You now have the most points of the guys and seconds most overall. Naruto grinned at how well he performed. Despite his best efforts, he barely hit a single bullseye the last time. He now has more than 1. As he warmed Naruto's body, Shinju praised him, saying, great job, young lord. This showed that you're improving slowly in this ninja subject. Hell yeah, Jubi added, grinning viciously. Let's these other guys match that score. Great job to leave a mark, young lord. No longer needing to hide since we are about to become shinobi. Naruto exclaimed, great job out there, Naruto. As Naruto approached, Mom will be so happy to hear that her little student had kicked so much ass during one of his weaker subjects. Good job, Naruto, Hinata said hesitantly of Naruto. I am so happy that your hard work paid off so well. I am happy for you. When Naruto heard Sasuke Uchiha being called up next, he blushed from all the praise. The next Uchiha clan head to ascend was the second oldest, who became immediately serious. Refusing to let Naruto outperform him, he gripped his weapons and glared at the targets. Sasuke outscored Naruto with a total score of 135 points in just 4 minutes and 53 seconds. All of the girls let out a loud scream at how awesome Sasuke appeared to be, which Naruto didn't find endearing and couldn't even begin to comprehend. The screaming only irritated Jubi and damaged his ears. Following Sasuke's exit from the field, his twin sister took over and finished with a perfect score of 150 points in 4 minutes and 8 seconds. The students, particularly the boys who were admirers of the Uchiha beauty, gave this another round of applause. However, Satsuki disregarded them as she returned to her contented and proud companions, her gaze swiftly focusing on Naruto. As a result, Naruto's hair moved over his eye and he cocked his head slightly to the left. All of the girls who were observing blushed at how adorable his face looked. Satsuki in particular, as she whispered to her how adorable he appeared. The only person who had heard her was Naruto, who became envious of her friend right away and even gave her a slight, imperceptible glare. She hurried forward and grabbed her first set of weapons when Enko called her up next. Naruto scored 145 points in precisely 4 minutes, even hitting the hidden target's bullseye. Naruto was still disappointed that Satsuki had received a higher score than she had, even in spite of the enthusiastic applause she received from her friends and her own group of fanboys. Naruto gave his friend a hug after noticing that she seemed depressed. She blushed as Naruto whispered in her ear, "You did awesome out there, Naruto," sending a pleasant chill down her spine. "I don't fully understand why you are sad, but you were amazing. You even got a much higher score than I did, which goes to show how skilled you are," Naruto said, grinning broadly as she gave Yakumo, Hinata, and Satsuki a warm embrace. As the two broke the embrace and smiled at each other, nobody noticed that the seal on Naruto's abdomen, beneath her clothes, started to glow dimly before it swiftly went out. However, Naruto did feel a little lightheaded because he thought Shinju and Jubi were slightly stronger. Naruto discovered that when he and his tenants got very close to Naruto, they would occasionally become more powerful for unknown reasons. He doesn't know why it happened, but it doesn't happen every time. Right now, he could hear Jubi snarling joyfully at his unexpected power boost. When Naruto refocused, he discovered that a few more minutes had gone by as Ino approached for her turn. He was unaware that he had just missed a huge joke from Anko, who had her red face buried in her hands. Naruto discovered that Ino's turn wasn't particularly noteworthy because she completed the task in 7 minutes and 23 seconds, earning a perfect score of 100. This led to Sakura and the pale blonde girl teasing each other and then arguing over who was superior. Fortunately, this was quickly put an end to by Anko, who threw the dango skewer between them, frightening them both and making them tremble at the Jonin's ruthless smile. Anko said, "As much fun as it would be to watch you two sticks fight each other, we don't have the time," while flashing a painful smile. To avoid upsetting Orochimaru's apprentice, they all hurried to the opposite side of the building and said, "Now get your asses to the sparring field so we can judge your taijutsu and ninjutsu." They all saw Iruka standing on the side with a clipboard in his hands when they arrived, 2 minutes later. On the opposite side of the field, Anko emerged in a tangle of leaves, holding another stick of peril. "All right, Runt, you all are going to have a spar against me. You don't have to beat me or anything. Just try to get at least 3 hits on my torso or even my back. Do either one of those and you have an automatic pass. If not done in the allotted 5-minute time frame, you will still be judged by Iruka here and ranked by your taijutsu skill. Now let's get started." Iruka nodded as he called out the first pupils, some of whom were a little uneasy because Anko's smile had turned into a savage one. As Naruto watched the matches start, he was curious to know how Anko intended to fight in this instance. He had previously sparred with her, and it was difficult and resulted in many unpleasant moments. She always held back and didn't take him seriously, even though he had previously delivered blows. So far, Anko has been effortlessly outperforming the other students while eating her dango at the same time. So far, Anko had been easily outperforming the other students by simply eating her dango in the same location. Not that they were awful, but Anko didn't give a damn. Anko only used his right leg to block and kick away one poor boy. When Shino's turn came, he did manage to hit her in the stomach, but that was the end of it. Anko once again didn't bother to try to get a hit on Choji, so it was unacceptable. However, given that Anko was a Jonin who was thought to be encroaching on Anbu territory, this was not surprising. Sakura and the other students were then removed by Anko without any effort or physical contact. The kunoichi even managed to render 2 of the students totally unconscious. Even though Anko occasionally struggled to contain her laughter at the pitiful performance, everyone could see that she was starting to become extremely bored. Kiba, who had Akamaru on his head, was the next person called up. Akamaru was permitted to practice with his partner because he is a member of the Inuzuka taijutsu style and she was bored. Since the Inuzuka clan's wild style was a huge advantage for him, Kiba actually didn't do too badly. Despite his diminutive size, Akamaru's extra body proved to be a great advantage. However, Anko was quite skilled at fighting this style because she was best friends with Kiba's older sister and had frequently sparred with her. Anko held herself back a great deal, which was the only reason any contact was made with her. After landing his 3 blows, Kiba and Akamaru were both bruised from the Jonin's blows. Anko could have done worse, but she restrained herself from striking him too forcefully. Kiba cheered and smiled when he passed his taijutsu test automatically, but his howl of pain quickly turned to a cry of agony because he was sore. For his genjutsu test, Kiba was dragged away by an Iruka clone, just like the other pupils. Naturally, though, not before making a "beat that loser" remark to Naruto, who merely narrowed his eyes at the challenge and jab. The next group of pupils soon arrived and left, with poor Yakumo and Shikimaru performing poorly and barely surviving until the allotted time had passed. Anko was not amused by Shikimaru's decision to sit down and run the clock. She threw herself at him and made him fight, but after the first blow he didn't hit anyone. Next, Anko called out to Naruto, who approached with the intention of demonstrating his skills as best he could. As he entered the Fundamental Academy fighting style, he thought, at this point, the only people passing without a doubt are Hinata and Kiba, as both received all 3 hits. "Young lord, why are you using this school's style?" Jubi asked. "We worked on a style that works better for you, utilizing what we could gather from memory fragments. It would do a lot better for you in your test." "He has a point there, young lord," Shinju concurred. "We are at the point where you don't have to hide so much of your strength. Other than are acquired by Akugan, you can fight more freely." Naruto thought, "I know, but I have my reasons," in response. He inhaled deeply and felt them nod in agreement as he said, "Just trust me, you guys." Anko said, "Begin," as Naruto stiffened and she simply stood there composedly. It was difficult for the civilian students to follow Naruto as Anko because of his remarkable speed. He attempted a spin kick to the Jonin's left rib, but she easily swatted it away. Anko only grabbed her head as Naruto swiftly shifted his body and attempted an axe kick. Naruto leapt off his foot and landed in a handstand before she could grab hold of it. He leapt to his feet and attempted a punch, but Anko deflected it with her knee. He used that knee and his own to pull himself forward. Anko knocked back down after blocking the knee strike with her elbow. Anko blocked Naruto's attempt at a backwards punch after he spun around. With a sly smile, Anko shifted her strategy and launched an offensive, using a diminished form of her hidden snake-style taijutsu. Naruto could hardly jump back in time as she sang her kick so quickly. However, she altered her gait and nearly made a connection between her heel and Naruto's ribs. The white-haired boy fell back as she abruptly dropped to the ground and kicked his feet out from under her. She reached for his foot, but Naruto flipped away with his hands. Now, with his hands spinning his body and his feet angled at Anko's, Naruto shouted in his head. The interrogation specialist recoiled in shock at this. Naruto continued at that speed, shifting positions and kicking up after the third. Anko was struck in the chest by this, losing her breath and stumbling back. Naruto kept going and swung the back of his hand at Anko's face, but Anko's fist hit him in the stomach. He stepped back in agony, gagging at this. Naruto was unprepared for the next 5 consecutive blows to his shoulders, stomach, and ribs because of this pain-induced distraction. He let out a cry of agony, but he managed to remain upright. As his body approached the ground, Naruto's entire attitude changed as he charged at his opponent. His hands were now more clawed and only partially clenched. Naruto was able to move more quickly and fluidly because the chakra in his legs moved more freely. Much more quickly than he had just a moment before, Naruto kicked at Anko's leg. Even though Anko was initially taken aback by his transformation, she was still able to follow his movements quite easily. Naruto spun and landed on her outstretched leg after she kicked the blow away. Anko tried to block his kick right away, but she was taken aback when he struck her chest with both palms. Naruto had nearly formed a C, with his body bent at an impossible angle. Anko then had to duck to avoid getting kicked in the head after a split air spin. She then demonstrated her own agility by kicking straight up, but Naruto leaned back just in time to avoid taking a kick to the chin. He was unprepared for Anko to strike him in the head with her elbow, causing Naruto to roll onto the ground before getting back up. As Anko prepared a counterattack, Naruto charged forward, concentrating chakra on his arms. As soon as Naruto was within striking range, he twisted his feet, making him disappear from her view. Anko exclaimed in disbelief, "What?" As her opponent disappeared, based solely on instinct, Anko managed to avoid Naruto's blow from behind before kicking Naruto in return. She had thought, "Oh, so." Just in time, Naruto leapt off the ground and avoided Anko's blow. Anko raised her arms to block in time as he delivered another spin kick. However, the kick's additional chakra gave it enough force to actually cause her to falter. She felt as though the bones in both of her arms were vibrating from the intense, to be honest, contact. Anko thought in disbelief, "I have sent this kid spar a lot of times before and have even sparred against myself multiple times. I've never seen him fight like this, and based on Naruto's shock and the other students' shocked expressions, neither have they." As soon as she finished thinking, she ducked another couple of blows and pushed back another attempt at a kick. Looks like little Naruto has been holding back, which is smart on his part. His time is running out, he has 1 minute left. After avoiding another blow from Anko, Naruto was seized by the woman, who firmly grasped his hands to keep him in place. Naruto knew he had to deliver that blow now because time was running out. Naruto demonstrated yet another display of remarkable flexibility by kicking his body upward and twisting it around. Anko was relieved that she had to release her grip in order to prevent him from kicking her because she knew that the force left behind would have caused pain. Naruto managed to sidestep Anko and dodge an elbow that was headed for his chest by using the snake mistress' shoulder. Naruto kicked the purple-haired woman in the middle of her back, causing her to fall forward in agony. Naruto received his third and last blow as a result, automatically passing his taijutsu test. Naruto realized he only had 10 seconds left, so he also got it just in time. Naruto got to his feet, feeling the wounds Anko had caused with each blow gradually getting better. He observed that because he had a strong healing factor, his wounds didn't last very long. He didn't bruise easily because of his fairly thick skin, which demonstrated Anko's strength even when she was suppressing the majority of her power. "Good job out there, Naruto," Anko said, placing her hands on her hips. Despite how hard Naruto's blows were, she didn't even appear to be affected by their spar. "You have passed your taijutsu exam portion. Now get going for your genjutsu exam. Good luck, Runt, not that you will need it for that." Genjutsu had been completely ineffective against him, so she was correct. He had Jubi or Shinju who could shatter the illusion for him if he didn't. Not that anyone was aware of that last fact, of course. Naruto grinned, nodded, and thanked Anko. After saying, "I will be on my way, Anko-sensei," Naruto turned to face his other companions. It only took him a minute to reach the final training field, so he said, "You guys got this. I'll see you all on the other side." While the original Iruka was studying his papers, his clone and his fellow classmates sat around the area. He approached, a little taken aback when Shinju raised his voice. "Young lord," he exclaimed, raising his handle and pushing out his chakra. Naruto exclaimed, "You are trapped in a genjutsu." His eyes widened in surprise. Before Iruka and the students reappeared on the opposite side of the field, he exclaimed, "Release." As the world around him warped, Naruto noticed that this Iruka had a blue clipboard rather than the brown one he had just had. Additionally, compared to their tidy appearance just a moment ago, his classmates appeared battered from their fight with Anko. Naruto was a little irritated that he didn't realize it immediately. "Naruto, you did a great job," the Iruka clone said, writing something down. "Broke out of the genjutsu in 4 seconds. Now you are allowed to cast a genjutsu of your own for extra credit." Naruto shook his head, not even offering a genjutsu for use. "You can cast one, young lord," Shinju answered. "Before our formation in your mindscape, you performed one on the gate guys due to pure instinct. From what I know, you were in an instinctual trance during that time as you performed other feats as well. Now it seems that your mind and body have locked them away due to you gaining more of a conscious." Naruto asked himself, "So I can perform genjutsu, I just can't right now," and the great tree hummed in agreement. "That's correct," Shinju said. Naruto, who had never really asked his tenants about genjutsu, nodded as he realized the situation. "Your body is having trouble currently due to you now mostly thinking about it, when before you just did it. Eventually, and with more practice in controlling your vast power, you will be able to cast genjutsu." Iruka noted the rejection, but it didn't really matter because he had already passed the genjutsu test. Hinata was trying her hardest to ignore another of Kiba's advances as Naruto approached a wall. Kiba said, "Listen, Hinata," grinning flirtatiously. "Why don't you at least give me a chance? We used to be pretty good friends until that white-haired bastard got in the way." The Inuzuka heir's persistent taunts of Naruto actually irritated Hinata. With her Byakugan active and a small amount of Ki unconsciously leaking from her anger, she glared at Kiba. Kiba was taken aback by her behavior, which caused him to perspire and retreat. Definitely from Naruto, but Hinata, sweet and kind. Never. Hinata spat at the boy, shocking Naruto with both her vicious tone and the fact that she didn't stammer. "I am going to say this only once, Kiba," she exclaimed. "You will back off and stop bad-mouthing Naruto. He is strong, kind, caring and so much more. We were once friends, yes, but you became an arrogant man ever since you learned that you were not top dog, despite still being behind Sasuke. Naruto has beaten you each of your spars and you can't accept that loss. Understand these words, Kiba, I will not go out with you. I like someone else already and that person is not you. Now leave me alone before you get your chakra points closed off." Kiba retreated as Akamaru whimpered, realizing that Hinata was not bluffing as her chakra gently leaked out and the veins surrounding her activated Byakuga tightened. The enraged Hinata frightened Kiba, but he also sensed that she was very attractive. An Inuzuka member's backbone is highly sought after in a partner. He vowed to win Satsuki's and Naruko's hearts in addition to hers. All he needed to do was prove to them that he was a real blue alpha and deserving of their love. He sat with his arms crossed under a tree and thought, but first I need to take down Naruto and Sasuke. Naruto let out a growl as he approached Hinata, who was now blushing. It should be me, not him, making her blush like that. After another hour or so, the remaining students approached, some of them limping and in pain from their fight with Anko, who approached with joy. After passing the clipboard to the original, Iruka's clone vanished in a cloud of smoke. Yakumo and 4 other students demonstrated a genjutsu for extra credit, but the majority of students passed the genjutsu portion. Many people seemed to have failed it because they realized they were stuck after just 1 minute. Naruto was pleased to witness Naruto, Satsuki, and Sasuke quickly defeat the genjutsu. We've arrived at the ninjutsu section of the test, Iruka informed his students, and we'll make use of the extra credit section of the test while we're here. By demonstrating a personal just you that you have independently learned, each of you will have the opportunity to receive additional credit for this section. After that, we'll enter the basic 3 academy courses you select, and you'll find out whether or not you passed the genin exam. Please come forward if you have any jutsus you would like to display. The Otsutsuki boy looked around and was not shocked that no one else approached Naruto and the clan heirs, but he felt sorry for Yakumo because she stayed back and had no ninjutsu at her disposal, and for Shino because his methods were different. Who wants to go first now? Iruka began the last section of the genin exam by asking. Kiba made the decision to move forward and impress everyone after hearing their teacher ask who wanted to go first. The dog boy boastfully told the girls in the crowd, "Get ready to be amazed," and Iruka nodded to Anko, who made a quick series of hand signals before slamming her hand to the ground. As a medium-sized rock wall rose from the ground, she declared, "Earth-style, mud wall." "All right, Kibbles." Kiba snarled at the moniker, "Use your jutsu on this wall." After channeling his chakra and getting on all fours, Kiba leapt forward so quickly that he created a vortex of chakra and wind. Tunneling fang over fang. The Inuzuka heir was irritated that his technique did not destroy the wall, but he was still pleased that he was able to deal so much damage to a defense created by a jonin. Kiba rammed into the wall of earth, causing it to dent and crack but remaining strong enough to stay together. Kiba cancelled the jutsu and leapt back. While Iruka recorded Kiba's score, Anko cancelled the jutsu and let it fall apart before recreating a new wall. Shikamaru was the next to ascend, and all he wanted was for it to be finished. He made a very exact hand sign and whispered, "Shadow Possession Jutsu." His shadow extended and joined Anko's own shadow, holding her in place. Shadow Possession is a success. Anko grinned as she stood there, completely unaffected by the jutsu's ability to paralyze her. Shikamaru waved his hand around, forcing Anko to imitate it while laughing. After Iruka recorded his outcome, the Nara withdrew his shadow, slumped onto a tree, and closed his eyes. Choji was the next to approach, clapping his hands together and expelling his own chakra. Expansion Jutsu. Human Boulder. In an instant, Choji's body grew into a huge ball, and he took a moment before rolling quickly like a bowling ball before rolling into the wall. The wall held its position for a few seconds before it started to crack, and debris flew through the field as the wall bent. Despite this, the wall managed to remain upright as the Akamichi cancelled the jutsu. Jubi yawned in boredom. "As much as I hate that annoying mutt, at least his jutsu was better than the fat one's. However, I will reluctantly acknowledge that the Akamichi boy caused more harm than the dog. It seems to work by expanding one's chakra within their coil through the use of his weight," Shinju noted. Both use a different version of a similar use of technique by rotating their chakra in different directions and at different speeds. This method is easy to comprehend and duplicate. Is it truly feasible for him to replicate the jutsu that Kiba employed? I mean, it seems like the jutsu would be useful to have, Naruto asked in his mind. Jubi said, "It shouldn't be too hard to do so, young lord," and Shinju agreed. "In fact, we should be able to improve it as well." Naruto nodded, paying attention as Sasuke had just completed his hand sign and Hinata, Ino, and Naruto had already completed their performances. Fire style. Jutsu with fire balls. The wall of rock that Anko had raised was vaporized when a ball of fierce fire twice his size burst from his lips. After the boys' fangirls finally calmed down, Satsuki's amazing performance was followed by the pulverization of the raised wall with the fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu. When it was finally his turn, he approached slowly because he didn't know what jutsu to use. Instead, he chose to let his body operate on autopilot and instinctively. After calming down, Naruto clasped his hands together before feeling the chakra in his body react to him and change its properties as random techniques flowed through his head. Wind style. Great breakthrough, he called out the technique that seemed to be etched into his very being at the ease with which he formed the jutsu. A powerful force of wind escaped his lips as it slammed into Anko's jutsu, tearing it apart piece by piece. Still acting instinctively, Naruto added a little more power to the jutsu, enough that it not only destroyed the jutsu but also left a small trench in the ground. As he took a deep breath and calmed his chakra once more, Naruto cancelled the jutsu. He was unaware of the shocked expressions on everyone's faces as they stared at him in the trench. Iruka had actually dropped his clipboard in shock. Anko's mouth was hanging open in shock, not expecting an academy student to have that much power in a jutsu, especially without using hand signs. What's with all the stares? Did I do something wrong? The Otsutsuki boy thought, a little embarrassed by all the stares, scratched his left cheek lightly, and took a moment to notice the looks. Ju smugly retorted, "No, young lord, you just put these stupid kids in their place. The Uchiha twins and Naruto were the only two jutsus that came close to matching your power, and you outperformed them in every way. And this was made even more delightful by the fact that you didn't even display your full potential." Shinju applied, saying, "I'm going to have to agree with the Jubi on this one. No one was better than that jutsu. However, I would rather know how we got those two weapons in the first place." "I still don't think it really matters where the technique is coming from," Jubi angrily retorted. "We already have it and will only get more as time goes on. Accept the ongoing addition to our expanding power." As Shinju opened his mouth to respond, a blushing Naruto gave him a tight hug and let out an excited squeal. "That was so amazing, Naruto," she exclaimed joyfully. "That jutsu was really strong. It surprised me that you knew such a strong jutsu. When did you acquire the ability to employ such a strong jutsu?" As she approached them, Satsuki inquired inquisitively, "You didn't even form your jutsu using any hand signs at all. That demonstrates your high degree of jutsu mastery, which is further enhanced by the fact that it is elemental. A jutsu of that kind of level is usually a Jonin level skill set. Hell, even most Jonin need hand signs for their jutsus, even if they are able to cut down the hand signs to 1 or 2 signs," Anko thought, observing Naruto intently. "The female Uchiha brat has a major point." Iruka looked at the damage caused by the wind jutsu, trying to piece together how an academy student knew such a powerful jutsu and could launch it to such a degree, but he was unable to collect his thoughts as easily as Anko after witnessing Naruto's impressive display. "To be honest, I recently learned about the method in the library and had a village ninja demonstrate the hand signs to me. It took some persuasion, though, because they thought my level of jutsu was a waste of time. I simply practiced it with a few other jutsus I discovered after that." Iruka and Anko snapped out of their reverie as they instructed everyone to enter the academy building for the last portion of the Genin exam, which would test their proficiency in the 3 academy basic jutsu: clone jutsu, substitution, and transformation. Although Naruto's high chakra prevented him from performing the standard clone jutsu, he later remembered, in this Kaseya, how to perform wind clones and lightning clones in addition to the shadow clone jutsu during one of his training sessions, so he ignored this portion of the test because it seemed so straightforward to him. He was soon summoned to perform next to the other room, and Naruto stopped him as he was approaching. "I know that you will pass, but just a little something for luck." Naruto ignored the looks the two of them were receiving as she made her way to her seat, grinning at the fact that she got a little blush out of crush. "Good luck, Naruto." She smiled with a blush as she pulled the boy in and gave him a quick peck on the cheek, shocking everyone with her boldness and drawing jealous glares from the girls and most of the boys. Satsuki glared at her friend, saying, "Damn you, Naruto. I won't allow you to get so far ahead of me." However, before she could take action, Naruto had already left for his exam room. After entering the room with the grace for which he has been known, Naruto prepared to start his test by using the substitution jutsu, which he used to swap a nearby chair for a blunt kunai that Anko had thrown, followed by the transformation jutsu, which allowed him to change into Anko and perfectly match her features. "Yeah, this is definitely awesome," the Tokubetsu Jonin said, smiling and crossing her arms as she walked around the transformed Naruto, inspecting the transformation. Man, I am hot. Just take a look at my nice, tight ass and that enormous rack. It makes sense why perverts can't take their eyes off of me, she said, laughing without showing any remorse at her appearance. Even after they met, Naruto's blunt and shameless words seemed to embarrass him, and he turned back to normal in embarrassment, his face a deep red as he had no idea how to handle Anko. Last but not least, there was the clone jutsu portion of the test. Naruto explained that his enormous chakra prevented him from performing the standard clone jutsu, but he did have a different clone technique that he could use if permitted. Iruka and Anko nodded, having been informed that this might be the case with individuals like Naruto and Naruto. If they were unable to perform the clone jutsu, then any other clone was permitted as long as they could do it well. After receiving approval, Naruto raised his hand for a single hand sign, Shadow Clone Jutsu. In a puff of smoke, the number of Narutos in the room increased from 1 to 6. Each clone was an exact replica of the original, with their arms folded across their chests. He was grateful that Naruto had practiced this jutsu frequently around him, so he was able to replicate it fairly easily. The level of mastery over such a highly developed jutsu was breathtaking, as before, and it was insane that Anko and Iruka had to use only one hand sign to create a shadow clone of all things. As Iruka gave Naruto his Konoha headband, Anko thought, something is up with this kid. The skills he has portrayed so far are pretty advanced for his age group. None of them are Genin level techniques or skill sets. They are basically the level of High Chunin to maybe Jonin level. I'll have to report this to Lord Fourth and Lord Orochimaru. Even though they are close to the family, Minato and the legendary Sanina, especially Kushina, who loves the boy and likes to act as a matchmaker between him and Naruto, are at least cautious of Naruto. However, Minato had been astounded by Naruto's rapid development since joining the village. He completed chakra control exercises within an hour of being shown them, and he quickly learned how to channel his chakra to different weapons or even different parts of his body as if it were second nature to him. It was unsettling to show that he knew highly advanced jutsu and could perform them with such little effort, even though skilled shinobis in the village had previously performed such feats at a young age. Because of all of this, as well as the fact that he was not originally from the village. When Iruka and Anko entered the classroom after the final few Genin hopefuls had completed their test, everyone's attention was drawn to them. They were all wearing their official headbands because the people who had failed and were not given one had already left. Iruka congratulated his students, saying, "I want to say I am proud of every single one of you. You have all worked hard to get where you are now and have earned your spot to graduate. I was glad to be present to see firsthand how much your strength is growing today. To be fair, we might be simply too strong for these idiots to start with. Not like they made it difficult for us in the first place," Judru led in boredom. "Wait, we are." The multi-tailed wolf smiled, pleased with their obvious superiority over the other pupils and even some adult shinobi. Since they were genuinely accustomed to their allies' arrogant boasting by now, Naruto and Shinju decided to ignore it. Naruto returned his focus to Iruka's statement that they would all need to meet at the academy tomorrow morning for their team assignments. All of the students, with the exception of a few, became excited as the teacher announced, "As of right now, we will announce the top students of the genders along with the top 3 students overall. For the males, the number 1 student goes Toa Sasuke Uchiha." While his fangirls squealed at his achievement and smirked at his success, the students applauded this. Satsuki gave her twin a one-armed hug in celebration of his success. The pupils were content, but Jubi was furious in his Naruto's mind because he couldn't comprehend how a creature so weak could surpass them. They weren't stronger than them. He continued to rage. For the girls, this was actually a very close one, Anko said, adding that Naruko Uzumaki was the winner of the top female position. "Congratulations, little sis." The class applauded the Uzumaki heir with joy. The girl was shocked because she didn't anticipate winning the top spot because Satsuki was usually marginally better than her. She was taken aback when Hinata gave her a hug and congratulated her best friend. Naruto then gave both girls a hug because he was happy for her, which sent them into a blushing and stuttering frenzy and made the class laugh, with the exception of Kiba, who, of course, growled in rage and remained silent. The Inuzuka boy was upset that Sasuke had won the top spot for the guys instead of him, but at least he could be relieved that Naruto had not won either, and it also helps that he still has a chance to win Rookie of the Year since that is determined differently. Iruka went on, "And now it's time for the spot of the top student. The student who performs the best overall across the ninjutsu, Taijutsu, Genjutsu, and Shurikenjutsu portions will also win Rookie of the Year. This implies that it will cover the proficiency of said techniques, such as the technique's speed and your ability to execute the right hand sets quickly. This will also include how quickly and accurately you were able to escape the Genjutsu, even though you were unable to cast one yourself, as well as the accuracy and speed of your weapon test. The final score will also take into account your test scores from the written portion. When accounting for the prior positions, the majority of these additional factors were not included. This year's Rookie of the Year award in the last spot will go to Otsutsuki Naruto. What? Before anyone could congratulate the white-haired construct, Kiba yelled angrily, "How the hell did that bastard get the top spot? That bastard is not superior to the rest of us here, no matter how much we try. Especially since he has terrible weapon skills." "Dog boy, how are your weapon skills?" Satsuki questioned in frustration. "It's not like you have very good weapon skills. Before attempting to criticize others, how about you take care of yourself?" Not to mention that Naruto has shown to be better at other aspects of the shinobi, Hinata said, glaring at Kiba. "You're just upset that you lack so many of his skills and abilities. Remember that you've never defeated him before, which puts you in their shoes." Everyone stared at the Hyuga heiress in disbelief, not anticipating such a scathing reaction from her. In fact, Naruto's mouth fell open at the cruelty of her best friend. "Little kitty has some really sharp claws that she was hiding away," Enko remarked, grinning at Kiba's angry expression as she whistled, genuinely impressed by the shy Hyuga girl's backbone. She hasn't really spoken to Naruto all that often, but he has always been nice to her when they have spoken, and he makes time to hang out with her if she is by herself. Yakumo looked down, upset that a nice guy like Naruto had been insulted so much by Kiba. Sure, it wasn't the most scorching of remarks, but it's not like he did anything that was deserving of being treated in such a way. She also acknowledged that she thought he was a handsome guy and a dangerous presence, which is why she had a hard time talking to him. Prior to the Hokage's family helping her seal her Edo, she hardly ever had the opportunity to spend time with a man her own age, much less one as handsome and kind as Naruto. The closest one was Sasuke, who was kind in his own way but wasn't particularly warm. She knew that Kiba was aware of Naruto's strength, so she had no idea why he would push Naruto so far. "Sit down, Kiba, I won't let you interrupt me again." Naruto has demonstrated a greater comprehension and application of his chakra and jutsu than anyone else here, Iruka screamed, glaring at his brazen pupil, forcing the heir to back down. He can now use his jutsu without reducing it to a single hand sign or having to wave it. The jutsu's damage output alone has demonstrated a level of mastery well above that of the others. Naruto has repeatedly demonstrated that his practical application of chakra in all areas was unparalleled when compared to those of his classmates, and the students found their teacher's reasoning to be logical. Naruto has demonstrated that he has genuinely earned his spot as the Rookie of the Year, in addition to his strong test scores. Kiba, perhaps you should have put in more effort to earn it for yourself if you truly desired it. But I didn't need to use any hand signs for my jutsu either, Kiba retorted, furiously clenching his fists in response to the amount of better Naruto being painted in comparison to himself. Not to mention that mine was a mix of both ninjutsu and taijutsu, which should be more impressive than just blowing some hot air. As he crossed his arms and explained to his fellow clan heir, Naruto's jutsu involved the use of nature transformation. Sasuke rolled his eyes. That is typically not used by genin ninja, let alone an academy student, which makes it much more impressive. Since the fireball jutsu is a rite of passage for all Uchiha, Satoshi and I would already be proficient in using fire release jutsus. This also applies to Naruto, you, Kiba, and the majority of clan jutsus. Unlike us, Naruto doesn't have that luxury, but he doesn't seem to let it stop him. Not to mention that the jutsu's power surpassed all of our combined damage. Buddha, Kiba tried to continue, but a glaring Enko cut him off from his next argument with a flash of murderous intent. You're going to sit your whiny ass down, mutt, and shut your trap and accept that Naruto is the Rookie of the Year, Enko said demeaningly. I won't be held responsible for what I do to force you to comply if you decide not to. I'm sure your mom and sister will understand when I tell them that you crippled because you didn't know your place, she said, grinning sadistically at Kiba, causing the boy to tremble in fear. Even Akamaru whimpered and hid inside Kiba's jacket. Naruto thought to himself with a hint of irritation, it's not like I couldn't cast a genjutsu, I mean I did it when we arrived. I just can't remember how I did it. Everyone, class will be dismissed for the day, Iruka went on, adding, "Please come back here tomorrow at 8 a.m. to meet your Jonin teachers and complete team placements." Once again, congratulations to all of you. Iruka turned and walked out of the room, followed by Anko. The students felt a wave of relief. Naruto. To get the boys' attention, Naruto yelled, "To celebrate graduating, we're going to Roasted Leaves barbecue. Would you like to accompany us?" After giving it some thought, the Otsusuke boy nodded in agreement and decided he could go to training later tonight. "How about all of you? Do you want to join us?" Naruto turned to Sasuke, Shikamaru, and Choji and decided he should invite some people after she asked her other two more elusive friends, Satsuki and Yakumo, who nodded despite the Kurama heiress's nervousness. "Want to come along with us?" Knowing that his sister would still drag him along, the Uchiha nodded when Naruto asked his friend and two acquaintances. Shikamaru sighed and said, yes, since his best friend had just agreed to go. Choji immediately agreed because his parents owned the restaurant and there was food involved. "How about us?" As she and Sakura approached the steadily expanding group, Ino inquired, "Are we also invited?" "I mean, I'm cool with it if the billboard brow isn't." "Ino pig, shut up." Sakura snarled at her childhood rival, saying, "I'll definitely go. After all, a pig like you can't resist eating, so I already know you will." "Correct," Sakura responded to the pale blonde's savage growl with a triumphant smile. Naruto turned to face her friends, Satsuki and Sasuke, who appeared to be fervently pleading with whatever god would hear them that their kind friend would not be cruel and refuse the two girls. Unfortunately for the Uchiha twins, there was no god to answer their prayers. "Sure thing you two," Naruto replied, causing both siblings to slam their heads against the desk next to them. "Would love it if you joined us, but do please keep your arguing to a minimum." She is aware that the request will be ignored by those two, isn't she? Hinata and Yakuman both giggled and agreed with Naruto's whisper. Even Naruto and Shinju could only agree with Jubi's statement that, it's because that girl is too naïve for her own good, as Naruto was occasionally too trusting, something her own mother had previously stated. "Why don't you come along with us, Shino?" She turned and asked one of the class's more distant boys, surprising him with the invitation. The Aburame nodded slightly in acceptance. Kiba was about to ask to join, but he was so angry at the majority of the girls in the group that he remained silent, but he did make a mental vow to hold Naruto accountable for stealing his girls. "We will be increasing your chakra training in case more unusual and potent jutsus start to appear. Enjoy your day, young lord," Shinju said gently. "Additionally, I believe it would be ideal if we could figure out how to counter the chakra chains that Kushina and maybe Naruto use." Naruto nodded at the two constructs. "But for now, you have earned a day with your friends." Jubi agreed with his counterpart, though he wouldn't exactly call the humans friends. A smiling Naruto grabbed Naruto's hands and pulled him out of the classroom, startling him out of his reverie. "Soon I'll be leaving the village on missions," he thought to himself, "and I may be able to finally get the answers of who or what I am." At night, close to Red Bean Country Shrine, the small village, which was closer to the seas and tucked away deep within Fire Country, was completely destroyed, as if smashed to pieces, and the bodies of various villagers and monks littered the ground and waters as the fire spread wildly. Small wisps of their chakra drained away as the people screamed in agony, causing their bodies to shrivel up. A once large and proud temple by the edge of the village was now also in rumbles while burning away. Some of the few villagers who were still alive were still attempting to flee to save themselves, but some of them were impaled by black spikes. The moonlight revealed a black mass of chakra, the thing that was tearing through the village, destroying everything in its path. Its body was a swirl of black, red, and blue chakra. It had 4 legs and paws similar to a wolf's, with sharp 4 claws on each paw. 2 bat-like ears protruded from its head. It had a shark-like snout with razor-sharp teeth. Its eyes were wide, with blue in one eye and red in the other, indicating that it was heterochromic. It had no tail, but it did have a small black stub on its backbone. Monks gathered around the beast and chanted while holding blue beads in their hands. The beads glowing as a sealing array materialized beneath the raging beast, which snarled at each of the chanting humans. As the seal began to encircle the beast and pull it into the array while it fought back, lightning shot from the seal, causing the creature to let out a powerful yet painful roar. As the monks struggled to lock the beast away, sweat was dripping from their foreheads. The seal succeeded in bringing the beast fully within a few minutes, and each monk fell to the ground in exhaustion as a wave of relief swept across their perspiring faces. The monks, beads and the seal glowed and cracked, and before they could do anything, the black beast broke free, shattering the seal and shattering the beads into tiny pieces. The terrified monks could only sit there in terror as the beast growled at them, its face showing rage, and its back bubbled before black tendrils burst from its back and rushed forward, stabbing each monk in the chest. Similar to what happened to the villagers, it was demonstrated that blue and red chakra was absorbed into the spikes as the monks shriveled up and entered the beast. When the monks were reduced to shriveled up corpses, the beast let them fall to the ground while roaring loudly once more. It looked toward the rising moon and snarled, its body glowing as its eyes took on a faint black ring. Sensing danger, the black beast leapt back as 3 waves of wind cut its prized spot. Glancing in the direction of the attack, it discovered 3 monks, all of whom were about 45 years old, that it had missed. Each of them wore a brown and white kimono tied together by a red sash, with golden staffs bearing sealing tags for each of the 5 elements in one hand and purple beads encircling their left arms and hands. The first monk glared and said, "Satoshi, hold the beast in check while Price and I weaken it. You will pay for what you have done here." The staff's lightning tag glowed, and the now named Satoshi nodded before disappearing in a body flicker technique and appearing to the remaining beasts. Lightning style. Electrical terrain. As the area became electrically charged, he slammed the staff into the ground. The beast roared in fury as the whips of electricity wrapped around it, causing it pain. Tsurugi and Price, the first monks, charged at the beast and then slammed the staff's head to the ground. Fire style. Flaming vortex. A tornado of fire was created as the 2 vortices twisted around the black beast, and the fire seal glowed as a twister of fire rushed from both staffs and engulfed it, drowning out the beast's cries of pain with the roars of flames. However, as black tendrils crashed into the electrified field, the fire tornado broke apart, absorbing the electrical charges as sparks of electricity were released from the beast's fur. Did it simply take in the jutsu? The beast glared at Satoshi, who cried out in shock, but why didn't it do so with the fire release? When the electrical sparks spread throughout his body, the black beast roared and moved in a blur of electricity that startled the monks. Satoshi was unable to move before the beast swung its arms down on him from behind. Fortunately, his partners were able to stop the claw from crushing Satoshi by using a quick set of hands JGNS that enveloped him in a purple barrier. "Satoshi, get away from there," Tsurugi and Price muttered as the barrier broke under the forceful blow. The Nirvana barrier will withstand a second attack. As Satoshi leapt into the ground and used the earth release, hiding like a mole technique, his earth tag glowed. The other 2 monks attacked after their partner moved aside, and Tsurugi aimed his staff at the beast while the lightning tag glowed next. "Take this, you demon," he said. "Lightning blast jutsu, lightning release." The black beast was struck by a strong lightning bolt, but it released black tendrils that first blocked and then absorbed the jutsu. When the water seal was activated, Price appeared to the beast's left and swung his staff forward, sending a vast archive of water slicing through the earth and rushing at the beast, which slammed into it, causing it to growl as it attempted to cut the jutsu but was repelled by it. The black beast stopped its momentum, charged chakra into its left paw, and swung downward at Satoshi, who slammed his staff into the ground as the earth seal tag glowed, 4 arcs of chakra rushing at him. Earth release. Earth wall. A rock wall appeared in front of Satoshi, which was immediately destroyed by the attack. He immediately erected another Nirvana barrier, which only temporarily stopped the jutsu before breaking. He then waved his staff forward and released another fire tag, saying, "Fire release, flaming vortex." Slashes engaged in a fierce battle as the flaming swirls charged at them. But as the fire jutsu was pushed back by the chakra strike, Satoshi was starting to lose ground. His Tsurugi and Price soon joined him, unleashing their own flaming vortex that combined with his, giving it enough power to overpower the chakra slash and rushing towards the monster that unleashed a set of 10 black tendrils. This time, as it roared and shoved the monks onto their backs, fire flickered around its fur, completely canceling out the jutsu as it was also absorbed into the beast. Price screamed in excruciating pain as the beast gathered fire into its maw and released a torrent of flames that were reminiscent of the flaming vortex jutsu. Only Satoshi and Tsurugi managed to avoid the monks as the twisting flames rushed at them. Price, as he activated the water tag seal on his staff, Tsurugi let out a cry for his friend. Water style. Wild water wave. The staff started to douse the roaring flames with a jet stream of water. The lightning and water tags glowed as Satoshi, furious at the situation, gathered his chakra and glared at the beast. Water release. Water wall. Lightning style. Emotions wave. Blue lightning chakra danced across the wave of water rushing at the beast, causing another high screech of pain as the lightning was enhanced by the water and vice versa. A wave of water rammed into the black beast, but all it did was make it take a couple of steps back. Then the staff sparked heavily. As more chakra was forced into the flames, Satoshi saw that their partner Satoshi was not breathing and realized that the fire jutsu was coming from an angry Tsurugi. Suddenly, a vortex of fire rammed into the black beast. Without a doubt, Price was dead. Red and blue chakra bubbled from the beast, gathered in front of its mouth, and transformed into a black sphere. As before, however, black tendrils emerged from the beast's body and absorbed the two jutsus. After the jutsus were gone, the beast moved forward because it had no wounds on its body. Recognizing the technique, Tsurugi and Satoshi started to tremble in terror at the dense chakra. "No way," Tsurugi muttered anxiously, "that's a tailed beast bomb." "It's a tailed beast." Tsurugi and Price retreated as they fled with a shunshin, but it made no difference because the beast materialized behind them in a flash of lightning. The now tailed beast threw the tailed beast bomb, which turned into a destructive chakra blast. Price shoved Tsurugi away as the blast burned him alive, destroying the village and leaving nothing standing in its wake. "Our deaths were guaranteed the moment you had arrived, wasn't it?" Tsurugi could only gaze at the devastation that had been left behind, every single piece of rubble vaporized in the blast's path. "You were the one who was going to send us to Kami, you Ribi, zero-tailed beast." A number of tendrils emerged from the Ribi's back and pierced Tsurugi's chest, causing him to drop his staff as his body began to lose all of its chakra. The now named Ribi threw the shriveled-up corpse away after feeling the monk die from the chakra being completely depleted. Sensing no other chakra signatures nearby, the beast growled as it started to leave the now ruined village, not knowing where it should go next but not caring either way. Its consciousness was out there in the world somewhere, and once it reabsorbs him back into itself, it will gather all the other forms of its power before recollecting its body. It must feed on chakra, heal itself, and recollect all of its lost chakra as it looked at the full moon once more. The village's now collapsing walls and any trees in the area were crushed as the Ribi fled in the middle of the night, letting out a spine-tingling roar. Nobody knew that the new tailed beast without a tail had awakened, and it would take a full day for anyone to find the now destroyed small village and temple of the Land of Fire. All that was discovered were some shriveled-up corpses and some destroyed structures. Ribi, the Zero Tails, is currently searching. At his team's training ground, Naruto Otsutsuki was lying beside the river. A whole week has passed since the graduation exam, and in order to eliminate those who simply lacked it, a second, more final exam was created for them to pass. It was a test to see how well Naruto and his group could collaborate. Let's just say that they performed admirably enough to pass. However, because their sensei didn't hold back, he and his teammates endured some suffering. In addition, every sparring session their sensei has held since then has been at full force, which is painful and humbling. Naruto said, "Got to say," while observing the river in motion. Sensei's methods are definitely strange, but they are yielding some serious results rather quickly. "Yes, though your teacher was definitely shocked by the nature transformation check, which was amusing in all honesty," Shinju replied. "Now we know that you possess each of the nature transformations. Not to mention the training we have gone through this week has awakened 3 new jutsu for us to play with," Jubi said. "Though I could make do without our time being wasted on these D-rank missions." "Damn lazy humans." When his wolf tenant said, "Can't argue with you there," Naruto answered. "These missions are merely tasks that these individuals are unwilling to perform. I don't understand how these missions are meant to make us stronger." Without anything to argue with, Shinju agreed with his 2 other partners that we could just use the wasted time to train. A girl's voice called out, early as usual, "Naruto-kun," drawing his attention. "Hope you didn't have to wait too long this time." Naruto turned to his right in response to the voice and saw Satsuki Uchiha and Yakumo Kurama, 2 of his teammates, approaching him. In all honesty, Naruto was pretty happy with his team because they were people he could trust. Yakumo has really come out of her shell this week and has become less anxious around him. They have been able to have conversations without her constantly clamming up and averting her gaze. Even though it's only been a week, Yakumo's physique has improved greatly as a result of the intense training sessions. She has gradually developed more muscle tone to complement her build and a healthier skin tone. Their sensei has given Yakumo a little more attention than Naruto and Satsuki, but this was done to bring her up to par with them because of her past health problems. They were happy to see that it helped Yakumo with her health problems, so they were okay with it. Naruto stood up and grinned. No, I haven't been here for long, saying, about 30 minutes tops. He looked at Satsuki, who yawned, trying to cover her blush, and grinned at the girls who blushed at his good looks. Satsuki, who has undoubtedly displayed her Uchiha pride by working hard to master the techniques taught by the team sensei, was as stubborn as ever, not wanting to let Naruto surpass her in skill. She and Naruto have gone on several dates, as she called them, and she has grown more self-assured and forthcoming, much like Yakumo. He would agree and spend a lot of time with her because Naruto and his two tenants assumed it was another word for hanging out with friends. Satsuki is also much more easily agitated than she used to be. If his hands touched hers, she would become irrationally angry with him. However, if he attempted to put some distance between them to prevent her from becoming irate again, she became depressed because she believed he was avoiding her. Naruto even went so far as to ask their sensei for advice on what he might have done wrong, but they would only laugh. He also asked Kushina or Makoto, and they would squeal in addition to the laughter he had become used to. Even Satsuki was growing weary of all these D-rank missions, and she asked sarcastically, I wonder what chore, mission, that we will have to do today, to which Yakumo sighed in agreement. A female voice softly said, Come now dear Satsuki, I don't think it is all bad, capturing the attention of all three. Makoto Uchiha, the mother of Satsuki and Sasuke, the official team leader of Team 11, the goddess of illusion because of her formidable genjutsu skills, was the woman to leave. The only people in the Uchiha clan who can match her are her husband Fugaku and her oldest son Itachi. She has demonstrated that she is a strong member of the clan by defeating all three of her students without using her coveted Sharingan. If the chance presents itself, Jubi will try to replicate it, much to his chagrin, as he wanted to witness the bloodline in action. Naruto and even the Jubi were humbled by how easily this recently retired woman defeated them. Even though she was still a little rusty, she was more than capable of handling all three of them with little effort. Naruto used pure power to push Makoto back, just as he had done several times with Anko, but her skill and experience prevailed the instant the surprise factor of his abilities ran out. Makoto smiled at her moaning students and said, Come on, it could be much worse, my cute little genin. Let's all go to the Hokage's office to get our missions for the day. Additionally, we would have accomplished our goal and been able to upgrade to AC rank mission if we continued at this strong pace. They completed at least 15 D rank missions every day, which was challenging because two of you could create shadow clones to expedite the process. Actually, only one team, Team 7, led by Kushina Uzumaki and consisting of Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke, was ahead of them. Not only was Naruto not on her team, but he was on a team with her two rivals, which made Naruto unhappy. Since Hinata was stuck on the same team as the conceited Kiba, they all felt sorry for her. At least she was on a team with Shino and had Kurenai Yuhei as a teacher, who was a secondary mother to the young Hyuga. Both of them would take care of her, so Kiba doesn't get too brave towards her. Although Hinata is more self-assured now, she was still a shy girl. To Ino's dismay, Shikimaru, Choji, and Ino were all under the guidance of Asuma Sarutobi, the late third Hokage's son, just as their parents had been when they were genin. Since Team 7 was taught by Kushina and Kakashi Hatake, the fourth Hokage's student, Naruto was mainly interested in them. Kushina came out of retirement, mainly because her rival Makoto came out of retirement to teach a genin team. Originally, Kakashi was supposed to be the primary teacher, but she was added because the team had the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and she was the best teacher for her. It took some intimidation on her part, but they all agreed to Kushina and Kakashi as co-teachers. Although Team 7 appeared pleased with their performance, it took the team a few minutes to arrive at the Hokage Tower, where Minato was just wrapping up another set of missions for Teams 7 and 8. As soon as Naruto entered the room, Naruto became as radiant as the sun, and Hinata's cheeks turned red when she saw the white-haired boy. Good morning girls, Naruto said to his two friends. Happy morning, Sasuke, Sakura, and Shino. I hope you're all having a good day. Naruto and Hinata greeted their mutual crush, good morning Naruto, with much more vigor in Naruto's greeting. Aside from a sulking and scowling Kiba, the others also greeted Naruto. Good morning Team 11, Minato said, grinning and giving Makoto a covert look in return. You're here to collect your next mission, correct? Yes, we are Lord Fourth, Makoto said in a polished manner. Figured that the usual number would be alright. Naruto excitedly interrupted, drawing a laugh from everyone except her romantic rivals. Oh yeah, guess what Naruto? She exclaimed. My team is getting a joint C-rank mission. We will be working alongside Hinata's team. Naruto's team gave this a startled look, and Kushina gave Makoto a smug grin, which Makoto returned with a playful glare. That's great to hear, Naruto said, ignoring Jubi's irritated complaints. This made the two girls blush and their chests swell with pride. This will put you one step closer to being the Hokage like you wanted, and even help Hinata with her goal to be a strong clan head to abolish her clan's curse mark that you both mentioned. Where are you guys heading and doing? We are escorting a bridge builder back to his village, Naruto stated. Naruto nodded, pleased with his friend's advancement. Apparently it's in the Wave Village, so it shouldn't take too long. The guy is with a Chunin to collect his things while we get ready to leave. Kiba mocked Naruto with a smug grin, saying, yeah, not only are we going further in our career, but, how do you feel about that loser? Kiba said, but you are going to be stuck here doing D-rank missions still. Naruto remarked, good for you, Inuzuka, which irritated the boy because he was unfazed by his taunts. Please be careful out there as you don't know what changes may occur. I don't need you to tell me that, loser, so shut up. I can handle anything that these people throw at me, Kiba growled at Otsutsuki, who was now perplexed. How is that the case when multiple people throughout our time at the academy and those people are not as strong as some people out there? Tilting his head to the side, getting the girls that like him to blush at how cute he looked. This caused the other genins to laugh and giggle, which further perplexed Naruto because he was just genuinely curious. Kurenai silenced Kiba's vicious growl at Naruto. In order to avoid upsetting his teacher, he held back his words. Although Naruto could hear the Jubi snarling in his head, he chose to focus on the discussion instead. He was taken aback by what he heard next as he fell back into his reverie. Actually, Lord Fourth, Makoto said with a victorious smile, I believe my squad is more than ready for their first C-rank mission as well. We only have like 2 days worth of D ranks before we hit the minimum requirement, but their skills are more than ready. Everyone was taken aback by her remarks, including her team. This shock immediately turned to happiness at being able to move up. Makoto's refusal to let Kushina overtake her was the main reason why no one noticed. Knowing that Makoto wouldn't be endangering her team if they weren't prepared, Minato nodded, particularly since one of them is her own daughter. Team 7 and Team 8, you guys are all dismissed, the fourth Hokage informed the teams that were waiting. You should go and prepare to depart for your mission. While everyone nodded, Naruto hugged Naruto and whispered in his ear as they were leaving. Kushina squealed at the adorable scene in front of her, and Minato laughed lightly. Good luck, Naruto. You will do great, she exclaimed. Hinata mustered all her bravery and stopped beside Naruto to catch his attention because she didn't want to be abandoned by her best friend. She leaned up quickly and kissed Naruto lightly on the cheek. She told him, that's for good luck, Naruto, growing anxious from the glares she received. Is that the proper way to wish someone luck? Worried that he might be doing it incorrectly, Naruto thought incoherently. Hinata's team followed him as he touched the spot where the now red-faced Hinata had kissed. While Satsuki and Yakumo exchanged envious looks with Naruto and Kiba became enraged over what he had just seen, a bewildered Naruto was deep in thought and did not hear Minato and Makoto discussing the mission plans. Satsuki had to give the boy a forceful elbow to the side to startle him out of his reverie. Were you paying attention, Casanova? She asked, venomous sarcasm oozing from her voice. Since she appeared so irritated following Hinata's kiss, Naruto shook his head, genuinely not noticing what was happening. Saying, I am terribly sorry for negligence, he bowed to Makoto and Minato, who laughed and waved him away. May I ask what the mission was once more? Not at all, Naruto, Minato said, giving the boy a kind smile. Your job is to escort two kunoichi from the Nadeshiko village back as they have had a few encounters and one of them is wounded at the moment. They are allies of ours and it would be best they get there without incident. You girls may come in now. A young woman who appeared to be in her mid-20s, give or take, was one of the two who entered. She was only a foot taller than Minato, making her fairly tall for her age. She was slender, with short brown hair framing an angular face. She wore a set of mesh armor over a short, full-body, red, backless suit. It was accompanied by a long blue-green apron shirt with an open front, a pair of arm-length gloves, and a light orange sash. She also appeared to have bandages covering her left and right wrists, as well as her left leg and thigh. She has a very thin, long katana strapped to her back. He could tell the woman was hurt because her arms were in a sling. The second girl, who looked serious, was the same age as the graduated genin. Her bangs were short, with chin-length strands framing her face, and her long black hair was pulled back into a Harem-style ponytail that hung just below her shoulder blades. Over what was probably her kunoichi uniform, she wore a beige hoodie. A black forehead protector, symbolizing her position in her village, was placed on her forehead. GGHXH. X. Minato said, Team 11, I would like you to meet your clients. The tall one is Takiwa, a jonin but obviously was wounded during an incident. The young women with her is Shizuka Yukino, a genin. These two are members of the Nadeshiko village and your mission is to ensure their safe return home. Pardon me Lord Fourth, Takiwa said. With me is Lady Shizuka, heir to the Nadeshiko village, as you all were just made aware. I am aware and honored by the presence of Lady Makoto Uchiha, but are you sure it's wise to entrust such a mission to young genin? Payment of a higher mission is not an issue if needed for a later payment. Makoto said, Miss Takiwa, before Minato could. I can assure that my team is more capable than you are giving them credit for. Yes, they are genin, but all quite powerful for their age, much like Shizuka, as if I am to be presumptuous. And if there is an issue that they are having trouble with, I will be right there to assist. Takiwa nodded, aware of the Uchiha's reputation. Shizuka, on the other hand, was unconvinced because she was staring at Yakumo and Naruto in particular. Naruto appeared to her to be an outsider on the battlefield. Although Naruto was aware of her glare, he decided to ignore it because he didn't find it particularly important. Makoto turned to her team after persuading the clients of their dependability. You three, go out and prepare for at least a week's worth of traveling. Considering your situation Naruto, you may take this to help prepare for the mission, she said, handing Naruto a small roll of bills. Don't worry about trying to it as I have plenty of money to spend. All of you meet by the village gates in 1 hour. Dismissed. The clients went to pack up after the team nodded as they all left the room. Miho remained in the office, her expression turning completely serious as she turned to Minato, who also became serious. Mission report, Jonin Makoto, Minato ordered in what his wife has affectionately called, Hokage mode. Sir, Makoto gave a salute. My observations suggest that Naruto possesses extraordinary, unnatural talent. As Anko has mentioned, he appears to be able to use complex jutsus at random intervals. He has so far used earth, fire, and water chakra natures, and there are rumors that he performed a wind-style jutsu during his genin exam. He is incredibly strong for his young age, as evidenced by the numerous bruises his strikes have caused throughout our spars. He has a stamina limit like everyone else, but he doesn't tire easily because even after control exercises, 10D rank missions, and sparring sessions, he was still eager to train more. If I didn't know better, I would have assumed he was an Uzumaki. As you are aware, his chakra reserves are higher than even mine, roughly as much as Naruto. With a hint of concern, Minato inquired, any signs of him being a threat? As a result, he and his family have grown to love Nanto. He was a kind boy who he and Kushina considered to be a son they had never had. He isn't sure how he should feel about his daughter's obvious crush on him. Even though it would destroy them from the inside out, if he were an enemy, he would stop at nothing to keep everyone in his village safe. When he asked, Makoto shook her head. No Lord Fourth, he has shown no signs of being a threat to the safety of this village. His skills are definitely unnatural for his age and most definitely above genin level. He doesn't have the experience of someone used to such power but has skill. Not to mention if he was acting, he is an amazing actor as he is most definitely still learning. I recommend that I still keep up the observation mission of Naruto Otsutsuki though. As I said though, he has yet to show any reason to not trust him. Minato nodded, somewhat relieved that Naruto had proven to be innocent thus far. Observation mission granted as the continued payment of this S-rank mission will be put to your account for the duration. Good luck on this and your team's first crank mission. Be safe. Makoto bowed and disappeared into a whirlwind of leaves and wind. By your dismissal Lord Fourth, she said. Alongside Naruto, the boy with white hair has just finished purchasing a set of shurikens, kunais, and camping equipment. The young man chose to ignore it because he didn't understand why humans didn't simply sleep on the ground like animals do. Naruto made his way to the training ground in about 15 minutes after he had gathered everything he needed. Young lord, keep walking to the training field, Shinju said abruptly. Naruto nodded, catching a glimpse of the girl's cloak out of the corner of his eye. That young girl who hired your team is following you from the alley shadows. Naruto soon arrived at training ground 11, pausing in the center of the field and crossing his arms. You can come out now, Miss Yukino, I know you have been following me. It was silent for a while until the girl with black hair appeared next to the small lake in the field, using shunshin. You have at least some skill, I suppose. Sensing me so well isn't an easy feat for some fresh genin, but it isn't anything too impressive. Miss Yukino, why are you following me in the first place? Naruto asked casually, perplexed but unconcerned. I'll be direct, Shizuka declared. I don't think you are strong, as you look like more of a nobleman than anything else. I will not have both mine and my friend's life put in danger by a wannabe ninja. So I want to make sure that you either stay here and are replaced by a more capable shinobi, or you stay out of the way. Naruto tilted his head in response, and she blushed slightly at his adorable face. You can't really call me incapable, he said. You have never seen me fight before unless you have been spying on me for longer than I am aware. If you wish to see what I am capable of, then you are more than welcome to, but we don't have a lot of time. Is he asking me to a fight? Shizuka thought as she glared at the white-haired boy after removing her cloak to show off her form-fitting attire underneath. All right, let's see what you can accomplish. Then let's see what you can do, boy. If he wins, at least he will have some value to the mission in my village. As best he could, Naruto took a firm stance before Shizuka charged at him in a blurry motion. Stepping to the side, Naruto was able to dodge with ease, but he had to duck to avoid getting kicked in the head. Naruto jumped back from Shizuka's axe kick, which changed the strike but destroyed the ground. Naruto was astounded by the amount of damage that a single kick could cause. Shinju told Naruto, that girl has a lot of power in her small frame. She is definitely impressive. As Naruto deflected a few more kicks from Shizuka, even Jubi concurred with his roommate. Jubi said, Young lord, this is a great opportunity. Use this girl as a chance to test our strength. Better than your teacher, who would always hold you back. Naruto nodded as he adopted a more aggressive stance and deflected 2 of her blows. Before she could recover, he kicked her in the stomach, sending her hurtling back toward one of the trees. After recovering enough to turn and land on the tree with her feet, Shizuka gathered chakra through her legs before pushing off and charging at Naruto. Naruto took a step back, sensing danger as he gathered his own chakra through his legs and leapt back farther away. Her hand easily sliced through the ground, and Naruto felt a burst of wind blow past him, causing him to stumble before he quickly regained his footing. Jubi said, it seems she is capable of coating her hand in wind chakra, after activating the Byakugan with his eyes. He could see chakra flow, but he couldn't see chakra points unless Naruto activated his own. As he leapt up to avoid a sweeping motion of her kick, Naruto thought to himself, explains where that burst of wind came from. Gathering chakra to his leg, Naruto swung it down, causing Shizuka to jump away in time as Naruto left a small crater where she had once stood. Nevertheless, he took a deep breath and turned to face her, saying, Fire style, fireball jutsu. Shizuka was startled and gave a quick set of hand seals when he breathed the ball of flames at him. Wind style, violent whirlwind. She released a strong wind gust that struck the ball of flames. The 2 jutsus battled for supremacy, and although her technique was by no means weak, Naruto's was swiftly overwhelming it. Gathering chakra for his feet and acting instinctively once more, he vanished in an instant and reappeared behind Shizuka. Naruto kicked the young Nadeshiko girl in her right rib, causing her to cry out in pain, and then he disappeared, reappeared next to her, and slammed his fist down, leaving the girl frozen in shock. Shizuka clenched her teeth and swerved to avoid the blow, tripping Naruto in the process. Following his instincts once more, Naruto landed on his hands and kicked down, knocking her next kick away and allowing him to wrap his legs around her waist. Naruto stopped with his fist right in front of Shizuka's face, his eyes narrowed at her as he lifted her off the ground and slammed her into the ground, causing another cry of pain. With his features starting to take on an intimidating appearance and his eyes glowing a light violet color from Jubi's influence seeping through, Naruto demanded, give up, saying, I would rather not hurt you more than is necessary before our mission. Particularly since I haven't gone all out with you yet. After examining Naruto's face and failing to see any opportunity to challenge him, Shizuka grudgingly conceded that she was unable to defeat him. I surrender, she said solemnly, because you have defeated me, I will now honor my commitment to you. I will always be by your side and be yours forever. That's fine by me, Miss Yukino, the white-haired boy said, not fully comprehending what she was saying. Naruto stood there, perplexed by her words but taking them to mean that she accepted his abilities and friendship. Yo guys, it's RyugaXD. You already know YouTube has its limit size, so if you want to see the spicier, uncensored, and exclusive stuff I can't post here, check out my Patreon. That's where I drop all my 18+ lemon content, early uploads, and more. Links in the description. Come join the fun.